the link. Just someone join it. Hey, yep, we're good. How's it going? Cool. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Sounds good. Yeah, so we're going to leave ourselves on mute, but if you ask questions, we'll unmute and jump in. Cool.
Death to my medicine, it's my medicine that's making me fall. It's the fault, and you sweat like it's nothing at all. That I felt 10 years ago, watching another tube fall. Smell the buzz, and won't think about nothing at all. Moment of clarity, another to rise. Don't wanna be what they grow to despise. If we stand for 100 feet above, forgot about work and found a new love. What the fuck, finding my goals for my souls.
Okay, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a very special edition of the stream, where we're gonna be fighting for the fate of humanity today. We've got something really special in store. So first off, let me explain what we're doing. A couple of weeks ago, we got approached by the University of Alberta in Calgary to play a special exhibition match with their DeepStack AI bot. This is a program that's about, well, I'd say something like 20 years in the making. We're gonna get a couple of the PhDs over there from Calgary to kind of explain the history of this thing before we get started. But also, I want to just mention it is a let me make sure that subscriber chat is off. It is a no delay stream today, so. Yeah, we'll be able to answer questions and talk about anything that you guys want in real time, which is always kind of a treat when we're doing poker streams. So first off, let me try to get Mike Johansson on the stream here. Let's see. There we go. Mike, are you with us? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure can. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm really excited about this match. So, first off, let me get a little bit of history before we start this, and if I understand this right, DeepStack is kind of the great grandchild of some of the work that a guy named Darce Billings did right back in the 90s. We're looking at old AI projects, I think by the name of Pokey and Loki. Is that about right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Doris was one of the first master's students and then PhD students with the group. And yeah, Loki was our very first one ever, and that was like 95, I think, forever ago.
So, so is Darce still with the project?
No, Doris finished his PhD in 2007, I think. Yeah, and then he went and worked at online casinos for a while. And I think he still is.
Okay. And did any of his work and code actually survive in the version that we're gonna be hopefully beating today?
I don't think so. Darza was involved with our very first like GTO style program, which was called PS Opti. That was around 2003, I think. And that was our very first program that took a GTO approach to heads-up limit hold'em. So I don't think there's any code in common with DeepStack, but a lot of the flavor of it still is, right? So DeepStack tries to do a GTO approach to heads up, no limit. And it's also our first program that can play freeze-outs. So it can play cache games, stuff with varying stack sizes, which none of our bots could do before.
Okay. Okay, so who is involved in the team right now, Mike?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a big team right now, so I'll have to try not to forget anyone. Our team leader is Michael Bowling. He's a professor at the University of Alberta. In the room with me right now, so I'm Mike Johansson. I'm a PhD, well, I earned my PhD last year. We also have Nolan Bard, who did his PhD last year. Dustin Morrill, who's doing his PhD now. The two people that are most responsible for DeepStack are these two co-authors that we have from the Czech Republic. So Martin Schmid and Maciej Moravsik. They're both PhD students at Charles University in Prague.
And how did you collaborate? Is this is there like a GitHub repository that we could like go check out if we were so inclined?
Yeah, DeepStack itself, we don't have the code available. That one's just for us. We published a paper about DeepStack at the start of the month in Science. Actually, sorry, it was at the start of March, so it's been like 6 weeks now. And a couple of days ago, we released some example code for how to run DeepStack on a really tiny poker game, like a made-up game called Leduc Hold'em. So there is example code out there to see. We have the code and the paper on our webpage. It's deepstack.ai.
Okay. That's a pretty cool extension. I didn't even know they had a .ai extension. Very cool.
Yeah, I think that one's new.
So when I was talking to my little brother about, when I think about like in my own circle who the best technologist is, it'd be my little brother Rob. I called him up a little bit earlier today to ask if he had any suggestions on how I could go about beating DeepStacks, and the first thing he said was, well, I would suggest to keep the matches pretty quick because you don't want DeepStacks being able to learn your behavior and adjust. And I responded to that, and I said, I'm pretty sure that they're trying to get DeepStacks at a GTO level, which it doesn't really respond at all to what I do. It's actually just trying to be unexploitable itself. So it shouldn't really matter how I play the bot. It's not really going to change at all or react at all to what I do. Am I understanding that right?
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, DeepStack is, like you said, trying to play GTO. So it's going to play every hand completely independently. So it doesn't matter what you do on past hands.
It has no memory.
No memory outside of like the one hand that's going on.
And it's not learning from how it plays me. It's not learning from how from this match at all. It's just, and its goal is not to beat me. Its goal is to be unbeatable itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It also doesn't pay attention to timing tells at all. So you can take as much time as you want on decisions, and it won't be able to tell the difference.
Okay, so about that too, I want to talk about that. Let me. I'm actually going to put you in the bottom left of the screen here in the Twitch stream. I'm not sure if you're watching the Twitch stream over there, but we're going to put you in the bottom left. I'm gonna go ahead and put the bot up here, and you guys will see. I've been playing around with this thing for the last week or so. What we've got here, I've played it now 25 times, and it's beaten me 15 times. But I will say, like most of my early, the first 10 times I beat it, all I was doing was just shoving all in, every single hand, to just kind of get a sense for what it would actually call with. And what I found was that I feel like the deeper stacked we are, the higher that SPR, stack to pot ratio, is, the more exploitable I actually feel like this bot is. I think that what's going on here, and maybe you guys can kind of give me what you guys think here. But it seems to me like what's going on is if I understand how DeepStack it developed and where it is right now, is it probably had some sort of recursive machine learning process going on. And it like if I was going to develop something like this, I think that I would probably start by letting it learn how to play with as few options as I could design. So you'd start with, say, one big blind each in a no limit hold'em set, heads up set, and have it play itself and figure out, oh, well, I can't really fold anything. And once it figures that out, maybe expand to 2 big blinds and 3 big blinds. And it seems like the more blinds you give it, the bigger the set is of the game that you're actually trying to solve at a GTO level. So from my experience with DeepStack so far, what I have found is that once it gets down to short stacks, it plays remarkably well. And I feel like that would make sense because short stacks, when you have 10 big blinds or 20 big blinds in front of you, that's a much smaller set of different moves and different options and different possibilities. It's a smaller decision tree than if you have 200 big blinds deep. And so if there's a way to beat the bot, it would seem to me like the way to beat it, the way to actually find an edge would be when the stacks were really, really deep, not when they're short. Do you guys have any thoughts on kind of that approach to it?
I think you're probably right. The way the bot was developed is actually kind of the opposite, though. So the bot actually started off playing a 200 big blind deep fixed stacks. Like that's what it was first trained to play on, where we'd reset the stack to 200 after every single game. So that's where all of its training took place, was in that like 200 big blind deep, and nothing at all on smaller stacks. When it's in a smaller stack scenario, it still uses some of what it learned about playing 200 deep in order to figure out how much value it expects to get on certain flops and certain turns. The reason I think you're right about where the gap is, though, is that when the stacks are really small, it's able to just unroll all the betting options it has in that round and figure out what actions it should take. And so when the stacks are tiny, it's going to get those decisions pretty much exactly right. And it is going to be when the stacks are deep and it has more options and it can't consider all of them that it'll have an exploitable gap.
Okay. So when so far you've taken DeepStack against a couple of pros here on Twitch. If I understand right, you took it against the Thinking Poker guys. You took it against the 2+2 podcast guys. And it didn't disappoint, right? The DeepStacks is undefeated right now.
Yeah, it was 3-2 over the Thinking Poker guys, and then 4-1 over 2+2. This will be the first time we're playing against a solo player, like just yourself, and we're excited to see how it does. Okay.
So I'm going to make a couple shout-outs here really quick, and then we're going to get started, okay? Just a big shout-out to everybody who's joining us. We got I'm the Rookie and the Vet giving us some run good mojo. Dutch, let's do this. Fuck a robot. They're taking over. I think that's what those stars are. ZSDF Unreal, nothing can stop us. Soon we shall destroy your greatest hero, robot, Mr. Destroyed. I like these. I like these robot emotes. A bot never tilts, says Golden Master. I think that's true. That's probably true. A bot never tilts. Here's one thing, Mike, that was really kind of interesting when I was playing this bot. 25 games now I've played this thing, really just trying to pen test it and see where maybe I could find an edge. And every once in a while, it would do something that completely surprised me. And there was one hand in particular, because one thing I've noticed is that when it chooses its bet sizing, it's almost always going for half pot or full pot or all in. It doesn't go for these weird bet sizes, except there was this one time when it checked to me and I fired out a value bet and it check raised, and the pot where it was making the bet, like a pot size bet would have been 800, and it actually bet 799. And I was like, what is going on there? Like this is the kind of thing that you would kind of expect a player, like a human player, to do, to try to Jedi mind trick you into either making a call or making a fold. But the DeepStack AI bot is not doing that. I know it's not trying to trick me. Somehow, whatever learning algorithm and whatever way it comes up to decide what to do in these spots, somehow it came up with an odd betting amount, and that really kind of just threw me. I was like, it's the kind of behavior that I bet that you guys see all the time and are thinking, Where did that even come from? I mean,
No, that one has, yeah, I've seen it do that before, and that one actually just has a simple explanation. So yeah, the only bet sizes it considers pre-flop, flop, and turn. It's only making half pot, pot, and all in. And on river, it also considers two pot, but that's it. That weird bet size you saw was just it was multiplying it was trying to multiply by the pot size, and just the way that it rounded the number, it rounded down one to get to 799 instead of 800.
so that makes sense.
So,
That
yeah,
makes sense. So
nothing tricky.
it's making a rounding. Is it playing on some sort of database? Is there like a great big database of hands and situations that it's built for itself that it's trying to, dig into as we're playing here?
It is trained off a big batch of data, but all the data just comes from it playing against itself. So there's no data from human games at all in there.
Yeah. So we got Ronaldus Beardus wishing us good luck. Thank you very much. Zach Delesh, what's up? Corey, okay. SD Bub, John Blaze, AZ Clay. We've got actually Mike Nolan. We've got some excited people to see if we can actually put up the fight for humanity. That's another thing that my little brother said. He's like, you might not be able to find an edge. This might be like John Henry. And I said, well, John Henry won, right? I mean, John Henry beat the train. I'm pretty sure. So hopefully it is like John Henry. He said, yeah, just don't die after the match. He's like, I don't plan on it. but maybe hopefully we won't play so hard that it ends up like that. Ferrari Dodger, by the way, good to see you and thanks for joining us. So, that's another thing. Just Let Me Drive says, just swap the dealer bot around and call it random numgen. So that's something that my little brother said too. Is maybe you could actually just play the bot against itself. And if I understand it right, the limit hold'em bot that you guys developed, you actually have a site set up where you can input data and have it spit out what it thinks it should do. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, our heads up limit one, anyone can go play against it. And you can also just go and ask it what it would do in any spot, and it shows you its whole range.
That's pretty cool. So it's going to be a mixed strategy here, right? Where it's going to some percentage of the time make some moves with certain hands. But I got to think that in that range, there's going to be certain hands that it will just never take an option. Like, for example, pocket aces is never going to fold pre-flop. I hope.
Yeah, if it does, that's a bug.
Okay, that is a good question. Cooper December 7. He has a good question for you guys. He's like, why are you creating this bot?
Yeah, no, that is a good question, and we get that a lot. The real reason is that we're all researchers of AI and computing science. One of the big challenges for computing science and for AI is trying to think about information that you don't know, right? So sometimes if you're playing a game like chess or checkers or Go, any of these games where you can look down at the board and see all the pieces, we already have pretty good algorithms for how to tackle those games. So they can still be challenging, but we kind of know what to do. But games like poker, where there's information you don't know, right? Like the cards your opponent's holding, that's what you'd absolutely want to know. You just can't. You have to make decisions without seeing the whole state of the game. That's what brought us to poker. It's kind of the quintessential game of imperfect information. It's the best spot to try to solve this problem.
I like it. So imperfect versus perfect. That's a big distinction when you're talking about game theory. Is your background more in computer science or is it more in game theory, Mike?
I think for most of us on the team, most of us are more computing science, coming out of a programming background, and then game theory is what we learn in order to tackle this type of problem. Okay.
So Cooper, thanks for the question. If any of you guys have any other questions, again, we're operating with no delay here. I think I'm ready to start this. I'd kind of like to tell you guys what my strategy is going to be. After playing this bot now 25 times, 25 matches, my plan going into it, I've done some soul searching, if you will, I guess, and I think that I think a big mistake that maybe some of the other challengers have made while playing this bot is playing it like they're playing a person. And I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be playing it like I'm playing a bot. And my game plan going into this is for the first 30 hands or so, while the stack to pot ratio is really, really heavy, I'm planning on every single weak hand I have just shoving all in. Every single hand, all in, all in, all in. Now, what I have found is that the computer, like DeepStack, does not adjust to this at all. And it pretty much always folds, except for when it gets ace king, aces, kings. It even folds ace queen a very, very big chunk of the time. Some percentage of the time it'll call with hands like king queen suited, but most of the time those hands are in the muck. They're going to be garbage. And hands like ace jack, ace 10, king jack, I've never seen it call with pre-flop when the stack to pot ratios are high. Pocket pairs above nines, it's going to call me. If it happens to hit pocket jacks or pocket queens, it's going to be calling with those kind of hands. But I've seen it fold sevens. I've seen it fold eights when the SPR is pretty high. So I'm going to be shoving for the first 30 hands until the stack to pot ratio gets to about 25-30. So most of the time, that's going to, once the match, I guess, the post-flop match really starts, most of the time I'm going to be starting that match with about a 3-2 or even a 2-1 advantage, because along with all those pre-flop shoves, the game plan is anytime I actually have a really good hand, any sort of big pocket pair, any sort of suited ace, any sort of court cards, I'm not shoving. I'm making min raises, and so anytime we see a flop, and anytime we see post flop action, while the SPR is high, I'm going to be coming in with a really big dominating hand. So a certain percentage of the time, this is going to just completely blow up. I'd say about 15-20% of the time, we are going to get into a spot where DeepStack wakes up with a big pocket pair or wakes up with the ace king hand. And, the nice thing is even when we're in those spots, we're going to have somewhat of a chip advantage. We're never going, every single shove pre-flop is by definition a semi-bluff. We're never shoving with 0% equity. So even in those, even in about the 20%, 15% of the time when, DeepStack wakes up with a hand to call with, well, some of those times we still win, but hopefully we won't have to worry about that. Hopefully we'll get to about hand 31 when the SPR is starts to get lower, where DeepStack actually does make calls with, the court cards and any sort of ace, and that's when we're going to be starting to play post flop. And I think that it's going to be tough, but I do feel like DeepStack probably doesn't have a good understanding, the same kind of understanding that is kind of just drilled into a human player over 500,000 hands of things like implied odds and reverse implied odds. So one thing I've kind of noticed is there's going to be a lot of times when DeepStack will make a call on the flop with a hand that doesn't really have anywhere to go, and if it does get if it does actually make something, I think that a lot of times the reverse implied odds are going to actually outweigh the implied odds. So an example would be like, sorry, we have a dog. An example would be like if I have ace jack and he's got king 3 and the flop comes out ace 2-2. You can trick DeepStack into making a call. You can make a min bet, and a lot of times it's going to make a call with that hand, thinking that it's got some sort of implied odds that really aren't there. And a lot of sometimes it'll actually, if you're playing a real person, sometimes king high actually does have showdown value. And I'm not saying that DeepStack is thinking in those terms, because I don't think it's really thinking at all. It's just trying to come up with like an unexploitable maneuver set, basically. But what I've also found is that DeepStack is much more inclined, I think, to make things like check raise bluffs on the river, and so you can kind of set it up for those kind of check raise bluffs. I think any sort of time when I'm not too happy about my hand and it does have some showdown value, I'm not going to be making a lot of really thin river bets on the river, like value bets on the river. But anytime where I have a really, a pretty decent hand where I wouldn't mind like an 8 high making a check raise bluff. We're always going to give deep stacks the opportunity to do that. So I think that those are the ways that I'm hoping that we can kind of find a way to exploit this. It's pre-flop play when we're really deep stacked and it has an SPR of a really high range, and post-flop play once it starts getting kind of lower. That's the plan. Anyway, I think we'll see how it goes. You know, the first 10 matches, you know, all I was doing was just shoving and shoving and shoving, and it just wouldn't call me until it got down to about 14,000, 13,000, and the SPR, the stack to pot ratio, got to be about 15 to 25 range, and then it does a pretty good job at making sure that it doesn't get run over. But that obviously would not work for any human. You know, if you actually tried this with any human and you were just shoving, and then turning over 8 high, and then you make a min raise and turn over aces, the human is going to adjust. So we'll see how it works. You have any thoughts on that, Mike? Do you think will it work?
No, it sounds like you have a plan.
We've got a plan.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I think I have to log in here. We have a new login for the real match here. So let me do that, and I'm going to put the break screen on while I do this because I don't want everyone to see the login info. We'll be right back, guys. Okay, so it still is showing. I just logged in, but it's still showing the score. Maybe if I just hit restart match, let's see.
Yeah, it would change.
Okay, here we are. Very first hand we have, you guys. 9-7 offsuit. All in. This is the plan. So it folds ace jack. Good fold, deep stack. Now we hope that it raises a little bit. All in. It folds ace jack again. We've got queen jack. Queen jack is actually a good enough hand where we're going to go ahead and play post flop. So we make the min raise. Pretty good flop for queen jack, you guys. King jack 10. Fires out a check. We are going for half pot. Got the straight. I think that we'll go with a little weird amount now. We'll go for 200. Hopefully it'll think that it's got some odds here to make a call with something like 8-7. And do we just take it, you guys? I think that the problem is if we make like a pot-sized bet, I think that a lot of times it's actually going to what does it do? Makes the fold. So we make the shove. It makes the fold with the king. Looks like it was actually ahead on that flop. Make it all in. Folds the ace-7. Sticking with the plan. And when it's so funny because it's like it makes these like long thoughts when I'm sitting here with 4 high And I actually really get nervous. I'm like, come on, I'm rooting for the fold, you know? I'm like, oh gosh. So stack to pot ratio still really high here. 18.3 is what it's got. There's going to be 600 in the middle, so we're looking at a 31 to 1 SPR. It's high enough where it's just never going to call unless it has like aces, kings, queens, jacks, tens, nines, ace, king. It'll even, I'm pretty sure that most of the time it even folds ace, queen here. So we're sticking with the plan, and we're going to keep on doing this until we get to 30. Oh, look at this. Your bot woke up with king, queen suited, and it actually called. Deep stack. Now we're crushed. Now we're crushed. So we get the pocket. We get the top pair. Our little all-in strategy doesn't work anymore because now SPR is pretty low. We'll try to trick it into sticking around with his little min bet. 7 of hearts. We'll see if our trick backfired. Little half pot here. Okay. Folds the ace-6. Good fold, deep stack. Good fold. 15 to 1 SPR. 6 high. Grateful Mouse, John Blaze. The game's not over, man. The game is not over. We still have a lot of big blinds in front of us. Also, we're playing a best of 5. Keep in mind, it's a race to whoever can win 3 first. So, but I'm not giving up on this first match. We still have it. We got this. Make the check back with our 8 high. Nice hand there, deep stack. CSGF Unreal, you're giving me that that Bible thump emote like it's already over. Where's the faith, man? Where's the faith? Pretty good flop. That's a pretty good flop, right? It's a good flop. So if we make the shove here, we're going to be firing out 2,200 into 1,200. About a 2x pot. I just wonder if it ever folds a pair of 6s or a pair of 5s. I'm not sure. I'm not thinking about calling here because, you know, I think that we have the best hand, but it's still pretty vulnerable. I just wonder if it ever folds a 6. Okay, we'll make the shove. One down. I'm going to have to get some water. Think about what happened. Mike, your bot is up 1-0 now.
Yep. 1-0 for the start.
Yeah.
Are we doing best of 7 today?
Look at that smile from Nolan back there, ear to ear. He's like, "Yep, that's right." You got lucky. Okay, we're gonna be. I'm gonna put the break screen on and get some water. We're gonna be back in 2 minutes, you guys. Okay, guys. Mike, you have any thoughts on that match? You got any advice? I'm fighting for you here too. You know, we're playing. You're still on our side, even though you're helping the robots here. You still are have a vested interest in us winning.
That's true. Yeah, we're on Team Humanity. I don't know. As far as advice, I don't know. It seemed like you had a decent plan. Ran into a good hand for DeepStack. So,
Do you play it a lot?
actually, not at all. Out of the whole team of us, there's like 12 people on the team, I think, and just about all of us come from a programming background. And I think there's only two guys on the team right now that play at all, and even they don't play against DeepStack much.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess DeepStack doesn't really have a lot of practice playing humans, then, huh? Just we're looking at maybe 12 guys in the world who've had an opportunity to play the bot.
Yeah, when we wrote our paper back in March, we played. Okay, so in November we played against a group of 33 pros, but that was all just 200 big blind deep, so not the freezouts you're playing. We beat them pretty soundly, and then since then, yeah, it's been you and the two guys from each of the last two matches.
Yeah. And it might be that you guys have actually done it. You know, it might be that there is not an edge for humans to find here. You know, like how...
I actually think there probably is. So we've like before Heads Up No Limit, we were looking at Heads Up Limit for a long time, and in 2007 we beat human pros for the first time. 2008 we beat pros for the first time. We lost in 2007 against Phil Locke. In 2008 we beat a team led by Matt Rolenko, and at the time, like Matt Rolenko was like the end boss for Heads Up Limit. But around 2011 we wrote a program that lets us measure the worst case loss for our programs, like how far they are from equilibrium, how far from GTO. And the program that beat Matt Rolenko was massively exploitable. Like it was beatable for almost 12 big blinds per 100, right? So a pretty big gap. And it wasn't until 2015 that we finally solved it. So I think the same thing's going on in Heads Up No Limit. I think there's probably still plenty to win against DeepStack. We're hoping it might be better than human pros now, but it's probably still a long ways away from equilibrium.
Okay. So it's kind of weird to me that you would be able to actually write a program to test for GTO before you knew what GTO was. How is that?
Yeah, writing the program to test GTO is a lot easier. All you have to do to test GTO is you come up with a perfect nemesis strategy for beating a program, and you measure how much money that nemesis program wins. And calculating the nemesis is pretty easy. Like you only have to look at every decision once. So you just kind of like brute force, look through all the spots, figure out how to respond. That's it. Actually, calculating the GTO strategy is a lot harder because you have to think of for every way you could play, like what does the nemesis beat it for, and you're trying to minimize that loss. So that was a ton more work.
Interesting.
It was actually the difference between 75 days of computation to get the nemesis versus 1,000 years of computation for the GTO.
Do you guys have your own cluster there at the University of Alberta, or are you using like Amazon?
Yeah, all the universities in Canada collaborate on like making a couple of really huge clusters and then sharing them. So we get to use that.
Very cool. Okay, Wee is green. How you doing, man? This is the Heads Up versus Bot, the DeepStacks. Grateful Mouse has some good advice here. Says, let's not go all in with 2 napkins. But that's the strategy that I have. That's the plan, Grateful Mouse. I mean, that's the, I think it's going to work. It's supposed to work. Keep in mind, even when it called it the King, Queen of Diamonds, which actually kind of surprised me, because most of the time that I've played it before with SPRs that big, King, Queen has actually ended up in the muck. So I think that it's got to be playing this mixed strategy where a certain percentage of the time it's folding that, but we just hit the, not only do we hit the hand where it's considering calling, we hit the percentage that it actually calls. Even with that spot, we're still not looking that bad with our 8-6 versus the King, Queen. So I feel like, I still feel like this is the right way to go, and I'm going to try it again. We're gonna try this again, Grateful Mouse. But I'll tell you what, if we don't get to hand 31, where I'm gonna show you guys the blind structure here. So hand 31 is when it gets down to 153. So 600 in the middle, assuming the small blind just calls, the button just calls. By that, at that point, once we get to hand 31, using this strategy, we're going to have the DeepStack spot. We should have it down to about 16 or 15,000, and by that point, the SPR, stack to plot ratio, is about 25, where it actually, we don't get through with the napkins anymore. If we don't get to hand 31 using the same strategy, then we'll try something different for the third match. But I'm gonna do it again. We're doing it again. And once we get down to 31, I'm actually going to we might do a little crowdsourcing here for these decisions. We might take some straw polls if we come up with something tough, and we'll use the wisdom of the crowd against the AI, and maybe that'll work. Here we go, guys. Restarting the match, 7-3. You know what we're doing, Grateful Mouse. You know what we're doing here with the 7-3 offsuit, the worst hand in poker. That's right. We're going all in. It's thinking. It's making us sweat with the Jack Queen off. Jack Queen off, you're gonna make us sweat with that, DeepStack. Come on. Come on. It works until it doesn't. Wee Wee is Green says, why shove? Why shove? The reason we're shoving here, Wee Wee, is because this is the plan I've come up with. Okay, where I think that DeepStack kind of falls short, because once we start getting to an SPR that's somewhat reasonable, it starts playing really good. It pre-flop, post-flop, it plays really good. I'm not convinced that a human can beat DeepStack post-flop. But pre-flop, in these situations, it never calls, except when it has one of the top three hands. I mean, we did see it just call with King Queen of Diamonds, but most of the time, it's even folding King Queen. Most of the time, it's even folding Ace Queen. So the plan that we've developed, and I explained this at the beginning of the stream, was we're going to be shoving in the first 30 hands when the SPR is very high. Unless we have a good hand, one of our top 15% hands, where we'll make min raises and force a post-flop confrontation. So that's the plan. And when I was playing it off stream, I played it about 25 times. And I feel like the plan, the game plan kind of worked. It actually got to the point where I did a lot of shoving, all-in shoving for the first 10 matches, and...
Are you tricking the robot right now?
No. I'm explaining to Wee Wee is Green why we do the things we do.
But shouldn't you play this hand?
We're not going to time out.
Yeah, but shouldn't you?
Okay, so you get the idea, Wee Wee. You get the idea.
You shoving here?
Yeah. I'm trying to use the hotkey. There we go. Okay, so now we have Ace King. We're not shoving with Ace King. With the top of our range against DeepStack, what we're doing is we're making min raises, and we're going to be going post flop. Completely whiff it. Two of clubs gives us the nut flush draw. We're going to go ahead and keep the pot pretty small here. The three kind of strengthens our hand, actually, because now it's less likely that he had a three in his hand. I'm kind of tempted, actually, to go ahead and fire out a bet just so that maybe DeepStack bluffs. A pretty good chunk of the time, DeepStack actually has a check raise bluff here with something like 8 high. So I'm going to go ahead and fire out the bet, planning on making the call. This is a bluff induction bet. And decides not to turn the Jack 5 into a bluffing opportunity. We would have called a deep stack. Good restraint there. Cooper, December 7th. Are you guys? Hey, Mike, are you guys seeing the Twitch chat?
Yeah, we are.
So that would be pretty epic. It'd be the kind of thing that you could see like movies being made about a couple PhD students in Canada coming up with the plan, just stream sniping everybody and then like selling the thing. Okay, so Jack 9 off. We got through. So far, so good, boys.
Be careful with your thing because it goes into your dashboard. I don't know if you can see anything.
Yeah, I saw that.
Now, did you take it off?
So Pocket Nines
Are you
is
shoving here?
well, no, we didn't shove pre-flop because Pocket Nines is actually at the top of our range. So we actually want to be going into flop situations where we have way the best of it. So ST Bub, this is not for real money. This is just an exhibition match, but it is kind of important that we win this. Otherwise the robots win. Queen on the turn. I don't love it. I feel like I don't feel like it really hurts us though. I think we're probably looking at something like a pair of 7s or a pair of 4s from DeepStack. Let's go ahead and make the check back, and we'll plan on calling up to a pot-sized bet if DeepStack fires out. It's another one of those situations where I'm really tempted to go ahead and fire out a bluff induction bet. This is another one of those spots, just like with the Ace-King, that I actually feel like DeepStack messes up a good chunk of the time. So I think that we're going to do this. We fire out 200 into 800 and hope that we trigger its bluffing algorithm to look down at a hand like 9-5 or 5-2 and make a bluff. Or King 9. That would like the perfect opportunity for it to bluff there. So nerve-wracking. So nerve-wracking when we make shoves like this with 4 high. We've got the Doyle. You guys will note also that the blinds have just risen. So the blinds are going to go up every 10 hands. So this is the plan for the first 30 of them. Once we get to 300, the 150-300 level, the SPR is dropped enough where we're going to have to start making it a post-flop game. Sticking with the plan. The nice thing about this plan, you see it folds the 2s here. The nice thing about this plan is, it reminds me of that part in the Doyle Brunson Super System where Doyle's talking about how his strategy in No Limit Hold'em is anytime he actually gets it in and gets called, he's usually a dog. But it's made up for by all the small pots that he actually takes down. So if we actually end up getting it in the middle here with our, with our napkins against DeepStack's going to have the best of it in these first 3 in these first 3 blind levels. But hopefully Hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it does happen, well, and we still have a chance. It's not like Ace Deuce is drawing dead against kings. So, and par decay. If you want to, I've explained it twice so far in the stream why I'm playing the bot like I'm playing it. So if you want to get the explanation, the game plan here is to exploit what I think is a weakness that DeepStack has, which is folding too much pre-flop when the stacks are big. So that's what we're doing here. So it's going to be 900, which means DeepStack is going to have. We're still looking at an SPR of about 20. So.
And you're changing your play when you get to the 31st hand.
And we're gonna be changing the play when it gets down to about 31. And we're also not shoving with our big hands. We're gonna go ahead and let DeepStack see flops when we have monster hands, nines plus, any two court cards. But we're sticking to the plan, even though it feels really sick to be shoving with 6 high against a pre-flop open. I mean, it just doesn't. It just doesn't call.
Normally.
I would never do this. You can't, that's the thing. That's the thing is when I'm playing this. This is a bot. And I feel like a big problem that people have run into playing DeepStack so far. I've watched the matches. I've read their postmortems. Basically afterwards. And I think that a big problem that the other teams have had was they played it like they would play a person. We're not playing this like we would play a person. I mean, look at this, what we're doing here, Party Q. We're not shoving with ace-8 of diamonds. We're min-raising. Could you imagine if we kept on shoving and shoving and shoving and shoving, and then we min-raise against a human? The human's going to see right through that. The human's going to say, oh, he's shoving with his weak hands, calling with his, or min-raising with his strong hands. I'll adjust to it. How would you adjust to it? Well, if someone's shoving all in pre-flop every single hand, eventually you pick a hand that figures to have a random hand dominated, and you make the call. You take the 62%. That's how you adjust. DeepStacks doesn't do that. Instead, DeepStacks is going for a GTO level play and using his hand in a vacuum and saying, okay, well, it's not right to ever call this much, unless you have a huge hand. And it makes sense. If we were playing 2 billion blinds deep, DeepStack would only be calling probably with aces, so, and it would be wrong to shove, that much because you get to a certain point where, the amount that you're picking up just isn't worth what you're risking. But I think that this is the way that we're going to beat it. And Grateful Mouse asking, how did Adam Schwartz and Terrence Chan do against the bot? That was the 4-1 match, right, Mike?
That's right. It was 4-1 over those guys, and then 3-2 over Thinking Poker.
Yeah. Okay. DeepStacks is undefeated.
It's 3-1. Does that mean 3-2? That's the bot one?
That's
4
right.
times? Dutch, you have to win.
I'm trying. So far, it's not looking that
harder,
good.
Dude.
I'm trying harder. I'm trying hard here, Exmoor.
Don't embarrass me.
All right, so the bot
Oh my god.
makes the
Oh
call.
God.
Now it's checking.
Oh my god.
I know.
Oh god.
Oh, God.
Oh,
Oh,
God.
God.
Scared.
And I can't read that. Is that hit slot?
Which one?
Asking, does DeepStack not keep track of the stats to adjust, or is it static with its strat? So that's the thing. When we talk about GTO, when we talk about game theory optimal, basically, and maybe you can kind of chime in here, Mike, because maybe I'm off on this, but GTO, game theory optimal, basically refers to playing at Nash equilibrium. And this idea of Nash equilibrium, it's kind of interesting, and I would like to actually hear your take on this, Mike, as a academic, because in poker, when people are talking about game theory in poker, they love John Nash. They love talking about John Nash, and I suspect that it has more to do with Russell Crowe than it has to do with his actual contribution to the field of game theory. Because if I understand it right, when John Nash came up with his idea of Nash equilibrium, and he presented it to basically the grandfather of game theory, which wrote that Game Theory and Economic Behavior. Who wrote that? Who was that guy? Do you know, Mike?
Yeah, that was von Neumann.
Von Neumann.
He was also one of the founders of computing science.
And so, no, I'm not shoving with his hand, Michelle. So von Neumann basically looked at this paper that John Nash wrote, and he looked at it, and I mean, I don't think that they were in the same room. I don't think it was like that, but I can imagine that, like, John Nash, hair all frizzled out because he's spent the last 4 days awake, scribbles on, like, the back of, like, the back of napkins or something, and it's like, I came up with this. This is Nash equilibrium, and Neumann looks at it and looks at him with, like, kind of this look like, you got to be kidding me, and he looks at it, he's like, Nash, you basically just repeated what we've already proven with fixed point theorem. And Nash is like, no, it's different. But I don't know that it was. Basically what Nash equilibrium is, and what John Nash, if I understand, his big contribution here was that anytime you have a fixed set of options in a game, and game is defined very loosely. When we talk about game, we're not talking about Monopoly and checkers. We're talking about any sort of interaction you have. If there is a fixed set of options and moves that you can make, then there is actually a Nash equilibrium where there is a right move that can't be exploited. And that isn't really to say that that's going to be the best move that will, end in the best EV that you can have. It means that it's the move that can't be exploited by somebody else. And one thing I kind of think that is interesting about this is if we talk about games very broadly, we're really kind of talking about, everything. We're talking about life, basically. And if we look at, this theorem being, if there is a fixed set of moves, well, the universe by its nature is probably limited. So basically, he's basically saying that there is a right move for everything. And von Neumann is like, yeah, well, we already proved that. Is basically what he said. How important is John Nash in the work that you do? Does his name come up? Because every single time you talk to a poker player, he's like, oh, GTO, Nash, GTO, Nash. And it gets to the point where I'm like, can you really explain to me why Nash is important? I don't think a lot of poker players can, because I think it's kind of become one of those catchphrases in our industry. I'm wondering if maybe we give him a little bit more credit than someone in your industry would.
No, I think we give him just as much credit. I think his name is in probably every paper we've ever written. Like he won the Nobel Prize for it, right? It was big. And when it comes to poker, I think there is a lot of confusion about what GTO means, like what we would call Nash equilibrium, and exactly where it is and isn't useful. This is something we talked about with the Thinking Poker guys on their podcast last week. Because just about every time I go online, I'm reading a forum, and someone's like, even on 2+2, even where people should know better, talking about GTO, a lot of the time people don't get the details right, and some of the details are important. Okay, so what does GTO actually mean? Like, what does Nash equilibrium mean? Nash equilibrium is a strategy for everyone at the table, set up so that nobody can make a unilateral change, meaning they're the only ones to change their strategy in order to improve their winnings. So this is kind of a funny thing in a multiplayer game. In a two-player game, it's really important. If you're playing heads up, like you're playing heads up now, if you can compute a Nash equilibrium, then that means your opponent is just screwed. It means there's nothing your opponent can do in order to win. That, like, the worst you can do by using a Nash equilibrium is tie. And if your opponent makes mistakes, like everyone does eventually, then the equilibrium wins in the long run. It's not quite as important in a multiplayer game. As soon as you have more than one opponent, and both of them are changing their strategies, like they can gang up on you, they can collude against you if they want to, but they could even just have strategies without intending to collude that happen to exploit you, even if you are playing in Nash equilibrium. So it's really just heads up where it's really important. But in heads up games, it's massively important.
Okay, that's really useful. Was there anything I said about GTO and Nash equilibrium that sounded wrong?
Actually, no. I think you got it right.
Okay.
It's yep. Fixed point theorem means that at least one always exists, no matter how many players, no matter if it's zero sum or non-zero sum. Yeah, it's only if you have more than one player. You can't guarantee not losing, even if you have one.
And is that what specifically John Nash won his Nobel Prize for?
If I'm remembering right, yeah, I think John Nash's advance over what was before was proving that they always exist, regardless of how many players, regardless of if it's zero sum or not. Whereas up until then, I think it was only really proven for two-player zero sum.
Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to induce a bluff here. We'll fire out a very small amount into 1400. It doesn't bite. Did it call there? I think it did, yeah. So it did call the 300. At least we got a little bit more value out of it. Hand 17 is where we're at, you guys. Next hand 18. 8-5. You know what we're doing. You know what we're doing with this, right, Michelle? You know what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So 900 is going to be in the middle, which actually...
How much chips do you have? Okay, so even if he wins this, you have some chips left over, right?
Yeah.
You can even get it.
It's kind of rough now because when he makes a 3x here, if we make the shove, there's going to be 900 in the middle. So his SPR is actually a little bit lower than we'd like to see to make these kind of shoves.
I think we should just call.
No, we're gonna shove.
Limp, dude.
We're shoving.
Oh man, can we just limp?
So it makes the fold there with the jack high.
Oh my god, this is too much for me.
I know, right? It's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking. I wonder if ace-6 off should be in our in our play range, where it's like a good enough hand where we play it.
So do you figure that this is like playing a slot, like rando slot machine because it's a bot?
Well, it's not really like playing a slot machine because slot machines don't really play
very
back
random,
at you,
random.
right? I mean, it's not like that slot machines are making decisions, whereas this
This
bot
like a
is.
gambling thing, like you're gambling.
We're basically counting on the fact that that only a very small percentage of the time it actually calls us. So 95% of the time this works and we pick up 600.
This isn't a bad. Come here, Jim.
Sorry
He
guys.
doesn't like the shove.
Sorry stream. We've got a our puppy here is telling us to slow down. June is saying, no, the SPR is getting too low for this strategy to work anymore.
No, SPR.
So SPR stands for stack to pot ratio.
Is that something that you've used before?
I don't really use it too
I've
often.
never heard you use that.
But when you're playing heads up, and when I've actually found that the whole concept of SPR has really become pretty important in this match. I feel like I've thought about it more in this match than I feel like I usually think about it. But I don't really, I've used it on stream a few times when we're talking about situations where maybe we make a pre-flop 3-bet and get called, and we're in a situation now where the pot is more than like half the stack of the guy we're up against. Where if you were really trying to stack a guy, you need to start actually making smaller bets and start thinking about making your bet size in terms of what your opponent actually has in front of them rather than what's in the pot. So, but basically when I'm thinking in terms of like what I should be shoving with and what I expect DeepStack to call with, when the SPR is pretty high. When we're looking at, like right here, 1200. So he's got, less than 15 times the pot that we're trying to steal. At that point, his calling range really starts widening up. But once it's like over 30, it's just such a small calling range that we just get away with it most of the time. So like right here, instead of shoving all in, I'm going to just actually make the fold.
This is the 10-3?
Yeah, this is the 10-3 because I think we're at the point now where his calling range is wide enough. It's still like frustrating though because a lot of times we're going to make this fold and he's going to turn over something like 8-6 suited and we're going to be like a 10-2. Like look at that, we had him waxed, we had him dominated. Doesn't matter. So we get through with our shoves way more often than his shoves because here, when we're shoving from the button, it's 400 in the middle, and the SPR is going to be like 30 something, over 30 to 1. 7-2. If he makes the limp, we can make the shove. If he makes a raise, yeah, we can still make the shove. So there's 800 here in the middle. We're looking at a pretty big rate here. And we're going to do this for another 5 hands. Once it gets to 31, then it's just going to be strictly a post-flop game. It does sometimes limp with big hands, by the way, guys. I've seen it limp with like ace-king, ace-queen, and then calls. And we're like, ah, gosh, how do you limp with that? Stupid robot.
See, Dutch, if you had that clip of I'm a robot, this is perfect for this.
Should we get the clip?
You should just start putting no.
Maybe we should get the clip. So King 6 actually, here we're actually going to make the shove because King 6 is a pretty good hand against the 3-bet range of deep stack, actually. We're ahead most of the time. So we're going to pick up even though he's got just over 10. I still think that we get the fold most of the time. And even if we don't, King high. Hold your breath, boys. We had him waxed. 2 more hands of this. And pocket nines is so far on the top of our range that we do make it a post-flop game here.
Double-0. I'm assuming Dutch thinks DeepStack has massive leaks.
So 0-0, I think you assume too much. You know what they say about assumptions, so I actually don't think that DeepStack has massive leaks. If I was going to be putting money on this match, I would actually have put it on DeepStack. And I've said that a few times now. Having played it, it plays really good. And the fact that it's already beaten the Thinking Poker guys and the 2+2 guys, I'm not saying that those guys are better than me, but there each time it was 2 of them together, and 2 heads are always better than 1, right? What do you guys think?
Oh, there was a previous post that he put first, I suppose.
I didn't see the previous post. Okay, here it is. Hey, can the DeepStack guys please talk about this?
Oh, okay.
So I guess this one's for you guys. Given that AI preflop is the simplest part to get solutions for, and the game tree gets more complicated down the streets and even more complicated with multiple bet sizings, what do you think about Dutch's strategy? Is it a case of it will work until it doesn't, as Dutch said, but in the long run it won't? What do you guys think about my strategy?
Yeah, we were talking about that question here while you were playing. It's not clear whether it's going to be playing better when it's deep or playing when it's shallow stacks. On the one hand, it was like all of its training when it learned how to play and learned how to estimate values of hands. That was all at the 200 deep. But 200 deep is also where the betting is most complicated, right? And so it's not able to go solve those spots exactly. Everything from the turn onward, it solves exactly. Like, so all possible hands, all possible cards. Sorry, not quite exactly. It can't do all the betting, but it gets the cards exactly right from the turn onwards. Pre-flop is where it has to rely the most on kind of its intuition about what hands are worth. So that's where it's going to be weakest for card knowledge. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a bad style of play what you're trying. I mean, it's obviously high variance, right? Like, it'll work really well or it'll work really badly, and not much in between.
So I like what you just said about that. So the talking about how the turn and the once you look at the flop, it's actually the game tree actually doesn't get bigger. It gets much smaller. The game tree is the biggest when it's pre-flop. So I think that's where we're kind of coming up with a division here, 00, is because it's actually not simplest pre-flop. When you're pre-flop, that's when all the possibilities actually exist. There's how many? I think it's something like 10 million different boards, right? Combinations of 5 cards. And then when you start factoring in all the different combinations of 2 different hole cards, the number starts getting really big as to all the different possibilities of what I could have, what you could have, and what the board will run out as. When you look at the flop, now it starts getting much smaller, where you're up against 2 random hole cards of 47, times basically 2 out of 47 times 1 out of 46. And then you basically, have the same kind of, combinatorial math for the turn in the river. So you're looking at somewhere, I think, we're probably looking at, about 1,000 different combinations that your opponent could have, and probably about that same amount as to how many turns and river combinations there are, right? So there, on the flop, you're probably looking at 1 million different combinations in the whole decision tree, and then trying to weight every single one of them. Pre-flop, you're looking at, you're probably looking at if you got 10 million different board states, and you multiply that by 1,000 something hand combinations that you could have, plus the hand combinations that your opponent could have, you're probably looking at about a million times 10 million. If my math is right, like I'm just kind of mental math here, but 1 million times 10 million, I don't even know what that number is. But I think we're looking at the trillions, the trillions as far as combinations go, as opposed to 1 million combinations of when you're on the flop. So I think that's where maybe the confusion is there, 00. The biggest game tree is not pre-flop. The simplest thing to solve is not pre-flop. That's actually the toughest. The simplest is actually when you're on the river, and there are no more board cards to come up with. And now what you're trying to solve is what percentage of the time, given these hands, do I value bet? What percentage of the time do I check raise with a bluff? What percentage do I bluff, and what percentage do I check raise as value? Which I think that, and then you do the reverse if you're in position. I think that sums it up. Any thoughts on that, Maya? That pretty much, are we on the same page?
Yeah, I think you've got it right.
All right. What's kind of interesting too, 00, is when we're talking about a million times 10 million as far as all the different board states and hand state combinations that there are in the pre-flop, we're not even really factoring in all of the different types of betting there can be too, because all the different types of betting that you can come up with, that kind of adds to the decision tree, doesn't it? Am I wrong there, Mike? Is that?
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And yeah, for a long time, that was the biggest challenge for making bots for playing no limit. I mean, limit was much easier for a long time. And for no limit, up until DeepStack, a lot of these programs were vulnerable to like stupid bet sizing tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could do something like an 11 pot bet, and the bot would think you've gone all in, and it would call really badly. or min bets would trick them. DeepStack is finally our first one that isn't vulnerable to stupid bet sizing tricks. But even just all the ways the betting could go is still really huge.
Okay, well let's see if we can trick it with the stupid bet size right here. Let's go with 222. We'll see if maybe it will. Are we betting this? No. We're just gonna check this. I thought we were still on the pair of aces hand on the river. We did get called in that spot. Right here we have pocket nines. So we're just check calling. Hopefully it just checks back. Okay, so let's fire out 222. And I think it made the fold, yeah. Okay, so now we're finally at the point where we're going to change strategies. Instead of making it all in, we are going to go ahead and see. That was the idea, John Blaze. The idea was if we bet 222, DeepStack's going to put us on pocket twos, and it would decide to go ahead and make its king high into a bluff. So now we're just going to go to our normal, post flop game here against DeepStack. The stack sizes are such now where if we look at DeepStack and we look at us, we've got them covered by more than 2-1. But if we were to make a shove here, it's going to be 600 versus his 12,000 in front of him. It's getting below that SPR of 25 that I really think that he makes the nitty bad folds. So we're just going to go ahead and make normal raises and try to take him post flop at this point. Hopefully we're going to be evening this up. It looks pretty good. This match is going the way that we had planned. So 4, 5, 6, not the flop I'm looking for. We still have some outs here. We could be ahead. I don't think that DeepStack really folds a lot of his range. Because I think that it looks at hands like, like Jack 9 as still having a pretty decent chunk of equity here. And I'm kind of worried about making a bet. It actually might induce a bluff on this one. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and bet anyway. June's yelling bet, so here we go. Half pot with our overcards and our gut shot straight. DeepStack makes the call. Doesn't mean that we're behind here. Now it's making the check. All right. Nice hand, DeepStack. 7-4 for the win. So making a raise. Jack 9 off. Let's go ahead and just make the call. We don't get any help with the flop. We do have that gut shot straight draw again. D's nuts. I didn't even know that Somerville pulled that. I wasn't trying to take Jay Carver's strategy, but hey, if it works, it works. We're gonna make the fold here with our Jack 9. Man, these are always so frustrating too. Because Mike, I feel like you guys have done a pretty good job with making this bot have a nice bluff range. Because so often in the practice rounds, I make these folds and he just turns over like the 8-5, and I just know that DeepStack is just like snickering. And just like, shaking his head. He's thinking that he's just the shit. It's like... Oh, look at DeepStack with the aces. That's the best thing about playing this bot is I can sleep well at night. All right, so making the min raise. That is a pretty good flop for 7-5 of clubs. So we've got the gut shot straight draw. We've got the flush draw. Let's go and fire out the half pot bet. It's so good of a flop, actually, that if DeepStack decides to make the raise, I think we just go all in. And actually, a pretty good chunk of the time we just pick it up, I think. So, yeah, so it's basically firing out a pot-sized check raise here. Even in situations where it has a hand, I think most of the time we're just going to be ahead. So, I'm going to make the shove. If DeepStack makes the fold, I'm fine with that too, because at this point the pot's going to be big enough. I mean, it's going to be 7,200 in there. He's only got 10,700 in front of him, so I don't mind just picking it up right here without a call. But if he does call, we're probably ahead. I keep on saying he, like DeepStack's a he. Internally, do you guys use he or she?
I think this question came up on the last two as well, and the two guys that were, the central programmers behind it call it a he.
So look at that fold, you guys. It actually folded the pair of eights, top pair, which is like, wow. Check raising the pot and then folding to a shove with top pair. I guess it's probably right, but we've got it 3-1 at this point, you guys. And ace-7 off is a monster heads up, but not so much of a monster that I want to play out of position with an unexploitable bot. So I'll just take the pot right there. One thing that I've noticed that I think DeepStack gets right is it just never folds buttons in these heads-up matches. When it's when it will fold if you raise to it, but I don't think in the 25, 26 matches now that I've played it, I've ever seen it just open fold a button. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I just don't think it happens. Have you guys noticed that as well? I mean, have you guys seen it just open fold buttons?
I don't think I've seen it do that.
I don't think
Not
I
that I remember.
just don't think it does, which, for a long time poker players have pretty much been on the same page here that you just need to play all of your buttons because there's just so much value in having position that it's a mistake to fold on the button when your head's up and deep stacked. It's kind of interesting because anytime I'm in a heads up spot in a tournament where we finally get down to that point, I'll say that, when we have an opponent that folds a couple of buttons, I'm like, okay, this guy, we're going to be able to wipe the floor with him, and then I usually come in second. But it's kind of nice to see an AI program that's been trying to play GTO actually come up to that same conclusion. And it's actually kind of a little mind trick that I'll use is very early on in a heads up match against a human. I'll go ahead and make a fold pre-flop. Just to kind of signal to them that that's okay for you to do as well. And usually that turns out to pay off. Let's go and make the call here with the 5-6 of clubs, queen, jack, 3. So we completely whiff it. We've got 6 high, and it's just going to be a check fold.
So you playing,
Got the
you're
6-5
playing
as
different
well.
now.
Nice
Now
hand there.
You're playing different now because of the 31st hand. Is that what
Yeah, so we're playing differently now because deep stack is shorter stacked. I mean, if somehow
Why don't
like
we win?
yeah, me too. It's actually kind of funny how it's just an exhibition match. There's not like hundreds of thousands of dollars here on the line, but I actually want this. It's kind of funny. Like I feel like I feel more invested in this match than I feel like I usually am in like heads up tournament situations where there's actually a difference between winning and losing. Let's see if we can't get through here. Hopefully we don't induce a bluff by deep stack. So we hit the jack. Not really sure whether I like it or not. Oh. So gross. So gross. So deep stack snap calls on the ace 9-9 with the queen high. We hit the jack, so I'm feeling like, okay, well, if it didn't have a 9 or an ace, we're ahead. No. No, we aren't. I like also how the DeepStack bot was going for the check raise there. It decided a queen high flush. We're going to go ahead and check raise our opponent. Pretty good flop for queen 3. Let's go ahead and make the check here, see what DeepStack does. Eds Wood, good to see you in the stream, by the way, man. I'm trying, dude. I'm trying to take down Skynet here. Come on, DeepStack. Represent that ace. There you go. There you go. Let's go for the min raise here. See if we can't get it to shove with like an ace 5. Or maybe a pot size bets as a bluff.
What if he's ace queen?
Well, if he has ace queen, he doesn't need ace queen now. Now he just needs like any ace.
Any ace.
Yeah.
Oh god. Oh, I didn't see it till now.
It's brutal.
Shit. Oh, something happened.
I think we call here, you guys. I think we call. You know what I'm gonna do? This is what I would say, you guys. You know, he has DeepStack's pretty good at bluffing. It's pretty good at making these kind of bluffs, and it knows that it doesn't really have to get through that often. I think that I mean, it's not really thinking anything. But I think a pretty good chunk of the time we are ahead here. But I want to leave it up to you guys.
There is.
And no, I'm not going to I'm not going to give I'm not going to have shove be an option. So let's go ahead and create the poll. This is the poll. Everybody who's in here. We're gonna go for the wisdom of the crowd here. Straw polling it up. Click on the straw poll, make your decision. I'm gonna go ahead and vote. And let's look at these results. Don't just type play for blood, RT Kabuto, John Blaze. Don't just type your don't just type it in. Click on the straw poll that I linked in the chat. And then I'm gonna wait until it gets up to 15 votes and we'll Okay, so 28 people have voted. 23 people say call. 82% of the time we're calling. So we're going to fold. No, we're calling. Ah!
What happened?
The wisdom of the crowd.
Did we lose?
Yeah, we lost. He had ace. He had an ace.
No, really?
So now DeepStack has evened up the stacks. Nice job, DeepStack. Oh, gosh. The Twitch chat has let us down. Don't beat yourself up about it though, guys, because I would have made the call as well. I voted call. Xmon, did you vote?
Yeah, I voted call.
You voted call.
I voted shove.
You voted shove. Ah, gosh. Okay, well, we are at a SPR here, 600 of more than 30. So back to the all-in. Next hand. Makes a 3-bet. I'm going to actually make the fold here with Jack 2. Nice hand there, DeepStack. And 800. So we're not really at a point where I feel like we can get through enough of the time. So let's go ahead and just make a min raise. My little broho Ho says, why would it call the turn raise? It's funny because no one knows. Not even the developer knows what. The developers don't even know why it does what it does. They just taught it to learn. They don't know what it knows. We're gonna go ahead and just give up. We're just done with it. Pretty good turn card for 5 deuce. We'll take that free card. And yeah, we're just giving up. You know, too often we fire. Well,
Are we losing?
I guess maybe we make a bluff here. Let's bluff it.
Oh God.
Calls us with
Are
two
you just
pair.
giving up?
No, I wasn't giving up. I decided not to give up with a 5 high. I decided to go ahead and fight for the
Yeah,
pot.
10.
He had 2 pair. 10's up.
Oh, nice bluff, Dutch.
Oh my gosh. Everyone's a critic. Okay, let's 800.
Just fold. Just check.
No. This is an all in.
Okay.
He's got more than
It's
25.
different now. You said your strategy's changing.
No, we've got. Okay.
No, I'm just it's good.
We're gonna take a break here, you
No, I'm
guys.
just kidding. I'm just teasing.
I gotta get a refill of the drink. I gotta regroup here. I feel like we had deep stacks on the ropes. You know, with that queen 3, it was like, oh, this is it. He hits the ace, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get all of the chips, and then now I'm questioning my play. I'm getting criticized by my girlfriend.
And dog.
Even my dog is criticizing my shoves. I gotta take a break here. I'm gonna be right back, but I'm gonna refill the water and splash some water on my face. Deep breaths, win stacks. We'll be right back.
Yeah, that one hand was pretty unlucky for you.
Yeah.
Well, I like the ace ace, right? Like, yeah, you were well ahead up till then. So
Let's do this. Everybody knew I was bluffing with that 5 high. Everybody.
You know what? It's because your shirt's unlucky.
The shirt's unlucky. That's right. Okay, so when you're considering stack to pot ratios, we're basically looking at 16,300 here. So about 21. Is it enough to get the fold? Because if we get through pre-flop, we're basically increasing our stack by 5%. I think that we get through enough of the time. We're doing it. Close your eyes, boys. Did we get through? We got through. Jack high decided not to make the call. We do it again. Same hand. Same situation. Same factors. Play for blood's like, just fold, man. Just fold. That's the thing. Play for blood. Turns out that you should never fold a button. I mean, if we're going to be playing it, we have to at least like call or raise the minimum or 3-bet, 3 big blind it. Deep stack would never open fold a button, and we're not going to open fold either because we think it's just wrong. Here we go. I can't look. It's thinking. It's making a sweat. It's thinking. It calls. And we got really, really lucky there. That's what you get for nit rolling, Deep Stack. That's why you never nit roll. Nit rolling is the most unlucky thing you can do. Sitting here thinking with pocket jacks. It's like, what should I do with these jacks? For fuck's sake, why do you make us sweat when you have pocket jacks? You deserved that run out. Look how beautiful of a run out that was, too. We have to go runner to catch up. 2 pair or trips or better. So now we're even for the aces run out, Deep Stack. I don't feel bad. Ask me if I feel bad, Deep Stack. I don't. I don't feel bad at all. No guilt for killing robots. Let's do it. The end is nigh, my friend. God damn it. So we get in there with the King 10 versus the Ace 5. We still have him 3-1. Make the raise. So, Mike, I got a little question for your team there. It's a two-part question. Did you guys see Ex Machina? And if so, why do you think it was the best movie of all time?
Yeah, Ex Machina was great. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I liked it too. Alex Garland, right? Yeah, it was Alex Garland who wrote that, I think. I think.
Writers.
Let's go ahead and make the raise here. Are we raising it? Oh, let's just see a flop. 9-8, not too shabby. We've got the spade. We've got the gut shot straight draw. It's good enough, actually. I think maybe going for a check raise is in order. So DeepStack fires out 400. We'll go ahead and fire out a pot size bet. What do we do if DeepStack just piles? I think we call, right? So he'd be piling for 6,000 more. And if he calls and we don't hit a spade and we don't hit a 9 or an 8, then what? I don't know. Let's worry about it when we get there. So we hit the spade. And we hit the straight. Let's go ahead and go for a half pot size bet here. We'll see if we can get a light call from DeepStack. So DeepStack does make the call. Wow, look at you, DeepStack. Flopping the flush there. So we didn't have as many outs as I was kind of counting on. I wonder, I bet that DeepStack probably would have called on that turn as well.
Are you taking notes on DeepStack?
In through the window, he says, "Oh, Dutch, I've also bought your book. Thanks, man. Really appreciate that. Poker Tilt, you guys. Pick it up on Amazon today." He says, "Just in case that would sway your decision."
Oh, did you see that he
Let me see what the decision was. Dutch, instead of doing a bankroll challenge, okay, like a lot of streamers, how about turn a 10-year loser into a winner challenge? I like that. I think that's. I feel like that's probably a lot tougher than the bankroll challenge. Let's go ahead and make the check. So we hit the nothing on the turn. Still probably ahead. 8 on the river. DeepStack fires out a half pot size bet. I'm gonna go ahead and just fold these guys, even though so often DeepStack's gonna turn over 9-2 and just rub it in our face. Okay, so he had something. Nice hand there, DeepStack.
what do you have?
He hit a pair on the end, pair of 8s. 800 in the middle, king high, good enough. 5-3, we'll make the raise.
Do you know how many games you're playing today? Are you playing 7 or 5?
We're doing best of 5.
Right? Unless it. Oh yeah, best of 5.
I kind of feel like Queen Jack is good enough where I don't want to just take the pot. So let's go ahead and go for a 2.5x raise. 00 says, Mike, how does DeepStack learn? What do you input or change through iterations, if anything? And yeah, guys, we're going to go ahead and make the call here. So DeepStack with a king high. Holds. Nice hold. Wow, look at that flop, too. Did you have a response to that, Mike? How does DeepStack learn? And what do you input or change, if anything?
Yeah, so DeepStack just learns how to play just by playing against itself. This is how a lot of the poker bots work. So all of our older ones, for example, like the ones that played Heads Up Limit, were kind of simpler than DeepStack. And they would start off just by playing against themselves. They'd start by having like a totally uniform random strategy. It's like 33% chance of fold, call, raise. That was it. So it would play one game, and then after playing that game, it finds mistakes that it made, like spots where it could have won more money if it had chosen some other action. So it updates the strategy a little, and then plays another game, and so on and so on. And if you do that like billions and billions of times, then eventually that will converge to a Nash equilibrium. DeepStack is a bit trickier because it's playing no limit, and the game is so much bigger. So DeepStack kind of does this one round at a time. So if you're on the preflop, for example, it's trying to figure out how can it play the preflop, and then assuming the game ends on the flop, and it's going to have some estimate of how much money it's going to win from then onwards. So it relearns how to play the preflop every time just by playing a few thousand hands against itself. And then the same thing, like if it's on the turn, then it's replaying these like little turn river games over and over against itself to figure out how to win.
So, yeah, good question, 00. I like that. So you just start with 33% of the time raising, 33% of the time calling, 33% of the time folding. I like it. And then adjusting those percentages. It works pretty well when you're at one big blind playing limit. 200 big blinds starts getting a little tricky, I'd imagine. So, DeepStack making the check. We've got queen high. We made the min raise. This has been a real gruel match, guys. This has been tough. And Bob Hatter, no delay. It's good to see you here. We'll go for half pot and see if we can just take it. We get queen 8 to fold. That's nice. King 8 of diamonds. He makes the limp. Let's just pick up the pot. King 10 making the raise. So pretty interesting flop here with a king 10. I'm going to go ahead and fire out a bet. It's a pretty vulnerable hand, really. But I think we should be ahead. So 9-8. Not as vulnerable as I thought. And Bobby Big Buy-In says, Alberta guys, what's your plan when the bots take all the programming jobs, homies?
Fire.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's just check. I like it. So Bobby Big Buy-In, that's actually my little brother. He says it's going to be the final profession. Coding is going to be the final profession. I think I don't know. I think stripping will probably outlive coding. I really do. So 9 high like a boss. Can we William Kassouf deep stack with this, you guys? Can we just 9 high like a boss it? 600. What do you think, Michelle? Let's Will Kassouf it.
No, I
Will Kassouf it. Let's 9 high like a boss it. I got the coconuts. We got it. Fold deep stack. Fold for the love of, oh my God. Look at him. He called with 10 high. He called like 10 high like a boss.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you learned your way, dude.
He didn't learn. He decided that it was a good call.
No, he has 5 right there. He has a 5.
Oh, did he? Did he have a pair? I didn't even look.
He had 5.
Pair of 5s like a boss. Nice hand there, deep stack. All I saw was the 10. All I saw was the 10. Pretty much the same hand. All right, 8-4 off. We're looking at deep stack with a little over 11 SPR. I think we just go ahead and make a normal raise. And Bobby Big Buy-In asking, does DeepStack incorporate timing as input? It doesn't. It does not incorporate timing as input. So there's no timing tells. There's nothing that I'm doing that it's learning from. Ryan's asking, will DeepStack be available for the public to play at a later date?
Yeah, we've thought about that a bit. We have our previous program plays Heads Up Limit. That one's available for anyone to play against. DeepStack ties up a bit more hardware than we used before, so that's why we don't have it now. But it's something we're thinking about.
I'll have to say, having played both bots, because I've played the Limit bot before, and playing DeepStack is a lot more fun. I also think that the user interface is a lot friendlier and prettier. I got to think this is probably done mostly in JavaScript, right, on the front end. Who was
actually, yeah?
Who was
Dustin? He's sitting in the corner here, waving. He's the guy that did all the work on the GUI.
I think it's
both actually, but
I think it's nice. I think it's really nice. The only thing that I think I would probably change, if I could give you some very constructive criticism, is I would probably just have it be a little bit slower when it's in all in, just so that it doesn't matter from DeepStack's point of view, but I would like to know what to root for. See if I can maverick that shit. Just focus on the 6. What do you guys think we should do here? So bottom pair with a gut shot. Decided to go ahead and fire out for value, and now DeepStack's putting the pressure on us. 48. It just keeps on putting me in these weird spots. We're getting 3-1 to make the call. I mean, even if we're behind here, we still have 2 4s, 4 6s, 3 8s. We still have nine outs, so 18% on the to actually turn one of them. And we could be ahead. DeepStack does these check raise bluffs all the time. I'm going to go ahead and make this call, you guys. We'll see if we get blown off the hand right here.
Are you learning about yourself?
See, this is another situation where it just kind of makes a... oh, no, I guess it's an all-in. So let's make it an all-in shove. I'm going to make the fold. It's going to be so painful if he turns over ace-6. Okay, so we made the right fold.
Do you think this will help you? Do you think this is a good training tool, or no?
I think that it could be turned into a good training tool really easily. I don't think that necessarily just playing DeepStack is a good training tool, because you don't really know when you messed up or not. But I think that if it could probably be turned into a situation where you make a move and DeepStack tells you what it would have done, basically tells you what the GTO option should have been. I mean, since it's going to be a mixed strategy, though, it's gonna tell you stuff that like with 2-4 suited, you should be shoving here with 7% of the time, and 3-betting 2% of the time, and so it's going to be kind of hard because humans can't really randomize. We can try, but when it comes down to it, we fall into very predictable patterns. Okay, let's just check back here. Now we're back to even stacks. I feel like we've had some good swipes at DeepStack, and keep on finding ourselves back to where we started. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's like I want to win. So Bobby Big Buy-In with a question: is there a direct application from your research in other areas?
Yep. No, that's a good one, and we do work on that too. I mean, really, what we're doing, right, is trying to find good algorithms for reasoning about, imperfect information, about stuff you don't know, about random chance. So to give you an example of like a totally non-poker application, a couple years back, we had a student that was looking at using exactly the same algorithm that we use for poker and applying it to diabetes treatments, like so a medical thing. This probably seems like totally random. Um, but the spot that it comes in is if someone is like a new patient that gets diagnosed with diabetes and their doctor doesn't have a good idea of how that particular person's body is going to react to insulin, then they have this like really tough problem. They need to figure out how much insulin to dose them with and how often, and like when to do it in response to like food and exercise and sleep and that kind of thing. But everyone's body is different, and both overdosing and underdosing insulin is really tricky. Like it could be deadly or cause someone to go blind. And so they tend to have these like really conservative approaches that might make the person feel groggy or like quality of life is just not too good. So one of the applications for the poker stuff was trying to figure out how can we dose them in a way that's robust to like the worst outcomes for how their body might respond, but still trying to get better quality of life for them. So like this isn't anything that's actually deployed in like blood sensors and being used in practice yet, but it's an example of the type of thing that we're looking at. We're trying to bring this out of the lab and outside of poker entirely.
So ex-moi, my girlfriend, her dad is diabetic and recently went through a little diabetic coma. So that's pretty cool, knowing that, Michelle, I'm saving your dad's life right now. I'm saving your dad's life by playing poker.
Make sure to call him.
Yeah, let him know. So 5, 6, 7. Overcards, gut shot, straight draw. It sounds better when you put it that way instead of saying 10 high. Hold on one second. Okay, so it checks. We've got top pair.
You should put your lucky hat on. This is good. This is good.
Fire out min. See if we can't trick it into calling us with a hand like Jack 6 or turning something like that into a bluff. That also is another good question for you guys. So how old is poker research at Alberta now? And did some of you guys enroll specifically with plans to work on this team?
Yeah, I think the team started around 93. Dars was working on it in 95. He was one of the first ones in. So wow, yeah, like more than 20 years now. And yeah, some of us did join the group specifically to work on poker. Most of the people that are around right now kind of came from a programming background and like learned to enjoy poker through working on it. But we have a couple people that came from more of a poker background and learned computing science and learned programming in order to work on this.
Really cool.
One of our guys is now like did a master's with us and is now a poker pro, and we have a couple other people working at PokerStars.
Wow, what a quick call. He shut down that bluff so quick. I think we could have gotten through there on the river, you guys. Yeah, let's just pick it up here. 1600 in the middle, so I'm going to just all in it. Deep stack tanking. So king high, king queen. Let's fire out another half pot. And king high good. I think this is another one of those situations like our ace-6 hand where figures to be the best, but not really that good of a hand against his random range, and I don't really feel like playing out of position against an unexploitable GTO bot with it. So let's just go ahead and all-in shove, hope to take down the 1600. We're going to usually be ahead. He slow-played us. So he open-limped there with the ace-king of diamonds, and now Deep Stack has the chip lead in this match for the second time. Brutal. Brutal.
Oh. Sorry. Unbanned. He unbanned.
Yeah. Here, let's just mod it. Okay, now you guys don't have to worry about those...
Now you can get closely.
So Deep Stack making the shove. We actually have king 6 of diamonds here, which is not that bad. Getting 1.3 to 1 to make the call. I still think we're going to make the fold. Nice hand there, Deep Stack. Two zero, you guys. We just lost again.
Did you just lose again?
Yeah.
Oh, Dutch, come on.
Yeah, we're on the hill. Deep Stack if Deep Stack wins one more match, then Deep Stack is going to be officially the winner. I'll play all 5, just because we want to get a final score.
Because you want to win at least one. You got at least one. You have to at least do one, babe.
I like how it open limped on the button with the ace king and the kings. That was pretty sneaky there, Deep Stack. Pretty sneaky. Okay, guys. So back to the strategy, the base strategy that we were talking about, making all-in shoves pre with all of our weak hands until it gets down to hand 31, and then kind of making it more of a post-flop game. I actually feel like Ace 5 is probably at the top of our range, so we'll go ahead and make it a post flop game with this hand against Deep Stack. We won't go for the all in shove. Headswood says being human feels bad, man. I know, dude. I know. So King of Hearts. Ace high is starting to look even worse. Hopefully Deep Stack has something like a Jack 8. 10-8 type hand. Well. And number 5, all in.
So are you
number
using the
6.
same tactic then?
Yeah, we're back to the same tactic. Till we get to hand 31. No! No!
No.
Okay, so it woke up with one of the top pairs, and our 8-6 didn't slide through, and now we are in really bad shape. Now he's got us something like 20 to 1.
Pot's too smart, Dutch.
It's good. 600. So 1,500 to pick up 600. Let's see what it does up against a limp on the button. So Queen 8-10. Matched one of those cards. The Queen helps our hand. Makes it a lot less likely for DeepStack to have a queen. So it also makes it so that we don't have to worry about kicker problems if he's got like a 10-7, right? Okay, so next hand, pocket nines looks pretty good. Mo is better than Steele. Good to see you, man. I wonder if DeepStack ever just calls a shove here. I feel so disheartened, you guys. So disheartened. You know, I had low expectations coming into the match. I did say, you know, like, if the bot's good. I've played with it a lot. 25 matches before this one, and only won 10 of those matches. But yeah, I was really thinking that it was gonna even up this last match. And now this match is just all but done. We can fight back. Fought back from worse. All right, so we get the double up. All we have to do, guys, is double it and then triple it. That's right. Just like the old Tilt TV show. Double it and triple it. I always thought that was the goofiest thing. Goofiest line in that whole TV show. We just have to double it then triple it. Easy.
Come on, Dutch, you can do it.
Iceman Kiwi, good to see you in the stream, man.
Are you playing for reals now? Are you playing for reals now, Dutch?
I don't even. That's such a loaded question. Am I playing for reals?
For reals.
So, Partike asking, how did he lose a second? Bad luck, man. Bad luck. We got so unlucky. This is what's going to happen is if we end up losing this this best of 5 match, you're going to see me like walking around the Orleans card room mumbling to myself about my bad luck, bumming cigarettes and being like, yeah, he had pocket 10. You won't believe what he woke up with pocket 10s. What are the odds? Let's go for a half pot.
June's so upset she's not even in this room anymore.
You know what I need? I need that. I need the lucky beanie. That's what I need. Lucky beanie. Here we go.
This will change. See, you should have done this when I told you.
I know it. No robot can compete with the luck of the beanie. Gonna go and make the fold here.
There you go.
Next hand, 8 deuce, monster. And yeah, by the way, Mike, if you get any questions in the Twitch that you want to respond to, just use the voice. It's going to be a lot better because it's going to the Twitch chat doesn't actually save on the video, so it's going to be a lot better if you just kind of chime in.
Cool. Yeah, can do.
Go ahead and make the fold.
Get some value out of this video.
And just like if you're doing an interview or something, just repeat the question.
Sure. I'll actually grab this one that Bobby Big Buy-In just mentioned then. Because he was asking if the AI is relevant for war simulation at all, and if we get any funding from the D&D. Yeah, for that one, our funding isn't from D&D at all. Like, we're Canadian, so we don't get any funding from that. And the military here doesn't really fund a whole lot of research like that. Although in the States it might. The stuff that we do is kind of close to an application that's not quite military, but it's close to. There's one of the applications of game theory that's really popular right now that's called security games. So security games happen, for example, if you're in charge of an airport, if you're trying to protect that airport against people that might attack it. So it could be terrorists, or it could be like smugglers, or that kind of thing. You have a budget for how much security you can run for your airport, and you might be able to have, say, 3 security guards, but there might be 5 things that need protecting, and so you can't have a guard at every spot all the time. And instead, you have to decide how to patrol your guards around to cover all the spots. So this winds up actually looking kind of similar to a poker game, especially if you have some opponent that's out there, like watching through binoculars, trying to watch what your strategy is day to day, in order to get a feel for what you're going to do in the future, and then decide, like, okay, I think I found a weakness, we're going to attack, like the check-in counter or something. And so that's one of the applications of these types of game-playing programs, is figuring out how to solve these games and how to randomize your strategy so that you're not predictable but still have good coverage everywhere. And that exact system that I just described is actually used at Los Angeles Airport, at LAX. And they do similar things for, like, patrolling the harbor in Boston and scheduling air marshals on flights.
So that recent United Airlines beatdown,
Oh, Jesus.
it was kind of interesting because he was a poker player. I don't know if you guys knew that.
No, I didn't.
It's something that made, like, the poker news stuff. Is he's actually, a lot of the pros have played with him a lot, and he was following the trail for a good 10 years. He'll probably whatever he can squeeze from United Airlines in some upcoming lawsuit is probably going to make its way to the tables in, like, Tunica and Atlantic City, and hopefully here this summer at the WSOP. I'm hoping that United Airlines just settles in time for Dr. David Dow to make it into, like, all the events I'll be playing. I want him to have a real full WSOP schedule this year because of his beatdown on the plane. When that video first came out, I don't know. I argued a lot with Michelle about it because I felt like, like, if it gets to the point where armed policemen are telling you to get up off of a chair, then maybe it's time to just get up off the chair. But she was like, no, he was in the right. I think it's kind of interesting. It's like, yeah,
No, I never said he was in the right. I said that the situation should have been resolved differently. I didn't say he was in the right.
So he basically, it's our generation's version of Rosa Parks, right there. DeepStack making the raise. We do have an 8. Not exactly the nuts, but effectively, I think. I mean, we're heads up with an 8. I wonder if we could make another little min raise and DeepStack just kind of explodes like a 10-7. All right, for fuck's sake. So that's the difference between second nuts and real nuts right there. Guys, it is official. DeepStack is, in fact, a GTO bot. Cannot be beat by any human. Confirmed.
You try again.
Confirmed unbeatable. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and play out the other two matches. But there's no way for us to win the match at this point. Which is frustrating. But at least we're in good company. At least we're in good company. Hopefully, hopefully you guys will be able to continue to demonstrate how much better AI is at Heads Up No Limit Hold'em. Keep on just crushing these human souls. It's frustrating. I can tell you, I really feel bad right now. It does feel bad. I feel really sad right now. I feel like I let us all down. Apologize to all of you, all you humans watching this, and maybe in the future, if there's some robots watching on old YouTube archives, deep mining. I just want to say a big fuck you from Vegas. Okay, so let's go back to the all-in strategy here. And Edswood, you're right. I'm not going to take the loss completely on my shoulders because the chat did fail as well. That little wisdom of the crowd experiment didn't really work. Okay, so DeepStack did wake up with an ace queen, did roll the dice, made the call, and that is
Maybe
a.
you should change your strategy, Dutch.
What do you think the strategy should be, Eximo?
Play like normal. Oh,
Just play like
normal.
play like we're playing a person.
Oh, look
Okay.
at this. He just killed you there too.
Yeah, no, it was pretty crushed. Pretty crushed.
So just play this one as if you're playing me.
All right. Okay, we'll try to play this one. DeepStack post flop.
Yeah, new strategy, dude. Come on.
New strategy.
Play nitty, yeah. Play it like a person. Maybe the robot's more like a person than you like to realize. Maybe that's how they got you.
Maybe.
See? If you would have shoved there, you would have gotten killed again.
Just now, you think?
Yeah. Yeah, play like you're playing strip poker, says Ghost of M.
Good advice there, Ghost of M.
Now, see
I wouldn't be able to accept the match.
What?
Unfortunately, Eva.
Play like you've never been hurt.
Play like you've never been hurt.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That's great advice, Michelle.
Play like you've never been hurt by a robot. Dear diary, today a robot beat me.
At this point, I just feel like I'm going through the motions. It's like at this point, I just don't want to go 5-0.
Yeah, you have to beat one. You have to do it once, man. You have to do it once, man. Come on, babe. You had it right before. You played good before.
Before what?
When you were practicing. you won one when you were practicing.
I won 10.
See?
10 out of 25. I was like, okay, this is still going to be a loss, but at least it's not going to be a total washout. That's what it felt like. I like after playing around with the bot, I was like, well, I'm going to lose, but it's not going to be like a 5-0. It's going to be like a 3-2, you know, or a 4-1. Now I'm thinking, man, I hope I lose by 4-1. God, so deflating. Okay. Play better.
Come on, Dash. Play better.
I think Queen High is probably still good here. We're going to go ahead and see a showdown. He's putting a lot of pressure on us, Michelle. 2 streets. He's putting a lot of pressure on us. Okay. Queen High was not good.
What is it, 2? Is it 10?
Oh my gosh, Bobby Big buy-in. It's like the meanest thing you could have ever said, dude. Bat signal. Oh my gosh.
Brothers do.
That's what brothers do. So Grand's hard. This is a bot. This is the DeepStack bot. The University of Alberta has been working on AI research and using poker to advance that for 25 years now. And this is the first time they've really... DeepStack is the first no-limit hold'em heads-up bot. And I feel like they have heads-up limit pretty well solved. But no-limit hold'em heads-up, I think still has a way to go, but they might be at the point now where it's going to be able to beat any human.
Yeah, we've had no limit heads up for a while, but nothing that was really comparable to good human players. This is the first one that we think is beating humans.
And so far it has, right? Like so far, like every single time you said 33 online pros and then 3 of these exhibition matches, and so far it's beaten everybody.
So far, yep.
Okay, so I'm going to feel a little bit better about that.
Touch, if you beat it, though, will you be the greatest?
Well, I can't beat it at this point. I can't beat it. That's what's frustrating. It's like there's no beating it at this point. It's already done beat me. I've already lost. The best that can happen is like I'll salvage a 4-1 loss. That's all it's going to be. That's all it's going to be.
You should do this every week. Maybe it'll make your game better.
Is getting pounded by a computer?
Yeah, every
Maybe.
Humble you.
Maybe.
Especially if you're doing really good.
Yeah, let's go for it. 200 into 400. I feel like that probably is a next step, though, in where you're going, right, Mike? Is kind of like with the chess bots, how eventually you just started having the chess bots play each other. I mean, do you think that that's probably going to be what happens with poker? And have you had talks with? I'm trying to think. Was it Cambridge that Liberatus came out of, or
Carnegie Mellon.
Carnegie Mellon.
And yeah, it actually has been for a while. So since 2006, we had the annual computer poker competition. So every year, like all the bots would get together and play against each other. In what we played heads up limit, heads up no limit, and for a while we played 6-player and then 3-player limit. Mostly it's the heads up games that are most interesting right now. So yeah, like when we get 20 bots that enter, we just do like the complete every head-to-head matchup of bots. Rank them all and see who comes out on top. Yeah, for comparisons against Liberatus, so neither our team or CMU entered in the last computer poker competition. Us because we were ready to play against humans for this with DeepStack. And similarly for them, they were playing Liberatus against their 4 pros. We talked to them the last time we met at a conference back in February. Neither one of the teams really agreed on which bot would win. Of course, we both think their own would win. They're doing things a little bit differently. So Liberatus is specialized. It can only play 200 deep, but it plays 200 deep very well. Also takes quite a lot of computing power. Like it ties up a supercomputer, and then it still acts about 30 seconds in action, which is pretty slow. So for us, we went a different way. So with DeepStack, we're playing freeze outs and cache game. We're also trying to act in about 5 seconds. So trying to be more reasonable, like how humans would play too.
One other thing on top of that, there is a question in the chat as to why it's maybe uninteresting to do the match. You can actually think of an easy example in like rock, paper, scissors. The equilibrium in that game, the game theoretically optimal thing to do is to play each of the rock, papers, and scissors equally 1/3 of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you play that strategy against like always rock, they'll actually tie. And so even though you have this one strategy, always rock, that's really exploitable, it just ends up performing as well as an actual equilibrium would against the other in the equilibrium pair. So like it might be that you will do this match and either they'll just tie and it'll be uninteresting, or the result just might not be what people think it'll show. So
sure. And it would also be, I mean, I got to think that poker is a little bit different than rock, paper, scissors in that if you were playing heads up with a Nash equilibrium, you're probably not just breaking even, right? It's probably not like rock, paper, scissors where, 33% of the time you're throwing, everything just evenly. And so you don't actually have a way for your Nash equilibrium to actually have an expected value above, anything. But wouldn't like poker would have to be different, right? I mean, if you're playing at a Nash equilibrium, the leaks that your opponent's making is going to turn into profit. I would think that the reason why a heads up match between Liberatus and DeepStacks might not be interesting to watch would be just because you're going to have to be playing billions of hands, to really come up with anything. So like, well, what are you going to watch? You're going to just like watch these computers go at it, over billions and billions of hands. Like there's something really to watch there, except just like except a couple of computer science PhDs pushing a play button and then reading the result. I feel like that would be basically what it would look like. But I do feel like the match itself would be kind of interesting because I would be interested to see what would win. I think that probably DeepStack wins. That's what I think. I think that I think it was the Carnegie Mellon guys who were talking about how limit hold'em had been solved.
Yep.
I mean, you guys are making the same claim that limit hold'em has been solved, right? But I mean, if that's the case, why would there still be a heads up limit hold'em event in the poker AI Olympics?
Yeah, well, there's not anymore. After it was solved, that's when we stopped running that one.
So we're saying
But
straight
even,
up that is the case, right? So and you guys feel comfortable enough saying that yes, limit hold'em heads up is a solved game that doesn't really there's no more real research to be done in that area. And
there's a bit of a caveat on that. Okay, so first off, the solved bit, and yeah, it is. Like we can heads up limit is small enough that we can brute force and compute like the perfect counter strategy to beat it, and then measure how much that counter strategy wins. And so the perfect counter strategy wins less than a big blind per 1,000.
Which means that it's not solved.
It's not exactly solved, but it's solved closely enough that it would take more than 70 million hands of play to gain sort of statistical confidence that you're actually winning, even if you're using that perfect counter strategy. So when we wrote the paper about that a couple of years ago, we said it was essentially solved. And when we said essentially, what we meant is, if you're a serious like top pro, if you spend your entire life playing and you played 1 million hands a year, then you could spend your entire lifetime and still not have any confidence that you're winning.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if you're using the perfect counter strategy. So there's that tiny gap difference between what we called essentially solved and like mathematically solved.
Because when I'm thinking about like whether it's solved or not, it's not really can it beat a human? It's like is there room for other bots to beat the bot? All right.
Yep. Yeah, and earlier on in the call here, I mentioned in 2008 we beat Matt Rolenko and his team. So that was where like we started beating humans then, but the bots we had then were massively exploitable. So that's the difference between beating humans and solved. Like solved really means like nobody can beat it, and essentially solved is like it's so close it's not worth arguing over. Even in heads up limit, there's still some research to do if you want to talk about like opponent modeling or how to make good counter strategies. Like that's still interesting. But as far as playing the game
To actually make
perfect.
like exploitive strategies, like
Yeah,
because DeepStack's, even though it could beat, maybe it's at a point right now where it could beat every human, but it could probably beat humans better. It could probably adjust and actually have a bigger edge by identifying weaknesses and deviations from an opponent's Nash equilibrium and attacking those. Basically.
Yep.
Like
exactly.
if a rock paper scissors bot were trying to adjust to an all rock strategy.
Right. Yeah. Then playing the equilibrium ties against always rock, but someone that's paying attention would absolutely crush always rock.
Yeah.
So we actually, you asked earlier on about whether or not that was the case in poker, where like two equilibrium-ish bots, would tie, or if like the one that was closer would win. And we actually found in heads up limit over about 10 years of doing the computer poker competition that the top 2 or 3 bots were just about, like, not quite tying, but pretty close to each other, even when they're still beatable for more than 10 big bets per 100. So a lot of these strategies that try to play close to GTO, even if they're not close, just if they try, they often do almost tie against other, near GTO strategies. So that's why, like if we were to play against Libratus, it could be that we win or it could be that Libratus wins, but it would probably be really tiny, even if one of the strategies was a lot closer to GTO than the other.
And so we're talking about like statistically irrelevant unless you had more computer resources to throw at it, and then you're basically just doing it to basically it's kind of a pissing contest at that point.
Pretty much. Even in heads up limit, like the heads up limit bots, ours and other people's used to play really fast, like 1,000 games a second fast. And so to compare them against each other, like we would actually just sit down and play 50 million hands. In fact, we'd even play what we call duplicate poker, where you play every hand twice. So you play it once, and then you flip the cards and you play it again.
Mm-hmm.
And that subtracts out a lot of luck in the game, right? Because anytime someone gets pocket aces, their opponent does too on the other side of that match. So that 50 million hands is kind of like the equivalent of playing 500 million of just straight up poker. In no limit, although the bots are slow enough.
I assume
like
that so duplicate, like the whole deck state is the same, is what you're saying, like the whole board run out and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Deal with the same board cards. Just flip who gets which hold cards. Actually, just flip seats even. So like one person gets the button and then the other one does. For no limit, the bots are slow enough that we don't even have the option of going and playing 50 million hands. Because DeepStack plays, some rounds as slow as like 7-8 seconds to act. Libratus on the turn was like 30 seconds. So yeah, there's not even a way to brute force the number just by playing tons of hands.
And Hollywood Guy, welcome back. No, haven't won any. We're 4-0. We're trying to salvage. We're trying to salvage one win here, just so that people aren't like, oh man, Dutch went 5-0. But at this point, the bot has won, and I'm actually really kind of sad about that. I wasn't really. I actually feel kind of sad. I'm like a little disappointed. It's kind of funny. Yeah. Let's just go and make the fold here with King 2. There's not really anywhere to go with it. King 2 offsuit, out of position against a 3-bet from the button. Even though it's ahead of his 8-7 suited, I still kind of like his hand better, given that he has position and he has a pre-flop aggression. I mean, pre-flop aggression doesn't really have the same kind of psychological effect when you're a bot. I don't really think that that he's more likely to c-bet if he has the initiative. Yep. That's a good question. Mike, no, it's not your question. It's something I haven't in my.
Your mind.
To what extent does DeepStack base its post flop decisions like on the flop here? To what extent is it basing its decision based on what happened pre flop?
Yeah, when it goes to act post flop, it's definitely thinking about the range that it takes into that decision. It doesn't quite use the range that it thinks you will take to that decision, but instead it thinks about, of all the hands that you could have, how much value do you kind of deserve for getting there, like against its range. So it definitely does pay attention to what happened earlier in the hand.
So it does base some of its like if it makes a pre-flop open on the button and the opponent makes the raise, it is going to base its percentages somewhat on the fact that it went re-raise pre-flop. So it's going to say, okay, well maybe maybe his range shrinks up a little bit, or I mean, so it's not just looking at the turn in basically a vacuum and looking at the pot size. It actually also looks at how it got there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, how it got there, how both players got there through every street. Yeah.
All right. Something I wish I would have known 4 matches ago. No. Oh man. So Twitchy Black Cat says, doesn't it adjust to an overshoving player and call light? No. So that's the kind of the cool thing about DeepStack Twitchy Black Cat is it's not trying to adjust to mistakes that its opponents makes. It's trying to play at a GTO level where it doesn't have to adjust. And yeah, I like what you guys were saying about how probably the next step in AI research once it's been solved at a GTO level. I mean, I would think that probably I would imagine that after DeepStack, it's probably going to start looking. You're probably going to start exploring more of the MTT type situations, and like the multiplayer situations, and start adding players. But after that, we're probably looking at trying to maximize exploitative play. That's kind of a. Do you guys, when you guys are talking about exploitive or exploitative, the terms are kind of used interchangeably. What do you guys actually use? Do you add the extra T? Exploitive or exploitative?
I think exploitive is what we usually use. Yeah. Yeah, exploitive play, like, this is something we've been looking at all along, like going back, the 10 years that, especially for me and Nolan here, we've been working on this for about 10 years now. I think what happened is that exploitive play just turns out to be really hard. Like trying to watch, even if you only get to see someone act for like 200 hands and trying to think about how that affects everything else in their strategy and then how you should respond to it, that's just a really tough problem. Whereas all the equilibrium-based stuff, where you just do a lot of computation ahead of time, or like DeepStack does, just do a lot of thinking as you're playing the match about that one situation, it just turns out to be a lot easier to make progress. Which is kind of funny, like exploitive play is actually the point of the game, right? Like what's your opponent doing wrong? How do you maximize your winnings? And so, yeah, we've kind of gotten to sidestep that by solving the easier problem of not losing.
Yeah. It's funny when you put it that way, but that's that does seem like it would be a much easier problem.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it seems like you'd have to solve that problem first to really even begin to start talking about what your opponent's doing wrong. If you don't know
exactly.
what's unexploitable, then you don't know what he's even deviating from. And with poker, it's kind of interesting because really all poker is just a lot of experience-based, knowledge, where after hundreds of thousands of hands, players have come to realize that having a VPIP, over 50% just isn't usually profitable in a full cash game, things like that. And we've built analysis tools. There was actually kind of some interesting big data projects a few years. There one called A Billion Hands, where they went out and they got 1 billion hand histories from poker stars and started running some analysis on it. But it's like what they kind of came up with is still a very small data set when you're trying to come up with anything like that you can actually, say something concrete about. Like the short term is a killer when it comes to poker.
Yeah. Earlier on in the call, you mentioned Dars Billings, like the first guy that used to work on poker at the U of A. And Dars did a master's with us, and then he went and was a professional poker player for like 4 or 5 years or so. And that's kind of how we got through school, was making all of his money playing poker on the weekends. And he used to describe his opponent modeling as being, sitting down at the table and like listening to how someone talked, or like how much they were drinking, or clothes they were wearing, all this kind of stuff. And it was less like, it was all this information that the bot never gets to see,
Mm-hmm.
right? Things that have nothing to do with the play of the hand.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because recently, there's been a lot of paranoia within the poker community when it comes to playing online and being up against bot rings. And I feel like this is kind of a problem that could actually be killing the online poker environments. I mean, I know firsthand that they are out there. I've seen people with bot programs showing them off and saying, "Yeah, look, here I have a bot in every single one of these, low limit stars games." Do you guys think? Can you guys give us any input on this? If you guys, first off, has anybody ever asked you to help them with a bot program or a bot ring? Like if I was, trying to come up with something like that, I would imagine that, trying to reach out to a couple of, a couple of PhD students who are working on the problem and maybe have some student loans that they'd want to fix with some AI applications. I mean, has anybody ever approached you guys with anything like that? And what do you guys think is actually going on out there online? Do you think that this is a problem that poker players should be worried about?
Yeah, so to answer both those, for the first one, we do get approached every now and then, but usually just by someone sending us a random email. I don't think any of us have ever really replied to those. Most of the time, any of us that are actually interested in like working like a real job as opposed to research on this, afterwards, we have quite a few people that went up at PokerStars. Like some of them doing server-side stuff, some of them doing bot detection or occlusion detection. That's usually the easier path for us to go.
So,
as far as whether
with like collusion, or with bot detection specifically, because collusion is a completely different problem. But with bot detection, I mean, at some point, is it just going to be, is it going to just be like trying to figure out who's playing perfectly and saying they must be bots because they're playing too good? And then it's just going to be, like kind of become like a cat and mouse game where the bot, syndicates are just trying to more mimic, human behavior, where they'll be like, some percentage of the time we have to fold aces pre-flop because we're getting a coffee, or like, we time out, and make stupid human moves just to avoid the bot detection. I mean, is that what it's going to turn into? Is that like these bot detection programs will just look at who's playing too close to perfect?
that might be part of it. I've heard that something that PokerStars does for like the really high stakes play, right, is if they suspect someone's using a bot or is a bot, then they'll just contact the person, lock down their account, and say, okay, we need to watch you play live, like, or on camera for your next like 5 hours of play.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to like show the camera around the room so they can tell you're not reading off another screen, so you're not just reading off your phone, that kind of thing.
Do you think?
I mean, that's something.
Do you think that bots are going to eventually kill online poker?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I mean, okay, heads up games for sure. Um, okay, so we think DeepStack is pretty strong. Even if DeepStack isn't there right now, I mean, all the hardware that we need for DeepStack is pretty light. It runs on a single GPU, like the same thing you'd use for video games. That's it. It's not supercomputers anymore. It's pretty consumer-grade hardware. And even if DeepStack isn't there right now, I think in 2 more years it probably will be, and lots of people will have it. Like, not from us. We're keeping it to ourselves, but other people will re-implement it themselves. I don't think any 2-player game is safe. I don't think, PLO or O8 or any of the studs or draw, like all those I think are just as vulnerable. That heads up is just going to be too easy for bots. So I think multiplayer is still tough. Like, as far as we know, even just in theory, like the mathematics behind multiplayer is really tough. So I don't know of anyone like botters that have actually figured that out.
Mm-hmm.
At least not without cheating. Like, if you get to run 3 of the people at a 6-player table, then of course you're going to have an edge. But if you're just going to take one bot and drop it down the table, I don't know of anyone that's really solved that really strongly yet. Then again, if all the heads-up games are on the ropes, then I think that's the next direction to go. So for sure, that's the next spot that we want to look at, is trying to get to 6-player.
I think you're right,
So,
Mike. I think it
yeah.
eventually will destroy online poker. Even apart from the fact that bots, that people will try to use bots themselves in the games. We kind of saw backgammon die back in the 80s because of the training programs. It wasn't even just because of the fact that they were able to solve backgammon. It was also because of how quickly they were able to get people to the point where they were playing at a near GTO level with programs like Snowy. The original Snowy was a backgammon program, and Jellyfish. And so now, they're kind of getting to that point with poker. Now there's actually a Poker Snowy. I kind of think that there's probably a pretty good opportunity out there for people to actually make these kind of training programs based on these GTO bots. But even apart from the fact that people will just, unscrupulous people will go against the terms of service and a couple of state laws and say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and fill these heads up tables and low stakes tables with bot rings. I think even more than that, you're going to just see such a speeding up of the learning process because of this technology, that the edge is going to be so much lower, and the games will just end up drying up. One of the things that Snowy was really good at doing back in the day was showing not only, you'd be able to feed in a backgammon match, and it would show not only who had the edge, but how big that edge was. And it was just so powerful. Like, if we get to the point, and it looks like we're right around there, where we can do that with no limit heads up matches, then it's just gonna kill those heads up games. And it does seem like it's just a matter of time before all online poker kind of goes the way of backgammon. But live poker will always be around. I think. I mean, it's gonna, maybe not always. I mean, I guess eventually we'll probably have robots who can read voice inflection and pupil dilation and adjust to MTT situations and pass off as human in the World Series of Poker. But I think we're probably at least a few years away from that.
Yeah. Even actually just what you said about people getting trained up, right? So yeah, if you practice a lot against the bot and really refine your game, and everyone else does too, and you sit down at a live table, then yeah, you're just going to get both raked out, right?
Yeah. One thing if there's one thing to learn from these matches that I want everybody who's watching to take from this, it's you never see DeepStack limping or folding pre-flop on the button. So if you are on the button in a heads-up situation, don't fold. It just never happens. And if you're up against a guy in a heads-up situation who folds his button, then he's making a mistake. I've never seen it. So far we were 30 matches, and I'm pretty sure that it just doesn't happen. So don't fold your buttons, you guys. Don't open fold your buttons when you're heads up. That's if you take one thing away from the match. So, Mike, you said that you earned your PhD last year. How long do you think that you're going to stick with the university?
Yeah, good question. Let's see. So I finished up at the university. After that, I started working for a company called Cogitai, who does AI research. And then I'm kind of helping out with the group just during the evenings. It's mostly other people in the room here, actually, that are the current people that are working on DeepStack itself.
All right, and are you both back there? Are you both students in the university still?
I'm a postdoc now.
I'm a student, so I'm a second year PhD student.
All right, very cool. And so, as a postdoc, do you have do you work outside the university as well, or are you staying in?
Right now, I'm just with the university. So I essentially, when this project was starting up, I was finishing my PhD, and there was the question of how much manpower we had, and I wanted to stay on and make this happen. So I did, and so I'm here.
Any plans for after?
Not specifically yet, but like we're kind of figuring out what the next thing is after this now anyway. So I'm mostly just kind of going with whatever is interesting right now, because like right now all of the DeepStack stuff is really fun to run these matches and see what's happening, and I'm not really in a rush to go to the next thing. So kind of run this out while it's fun and entertaining, and then find the next thing.
Thought that might have been it. We might have gotten our one right there. We flopped the set, and DeepStack had a pair.
You'll get there.
He got away from it. He was able to. She was able to fold the river. Nice, correct fold on the river. But we do have a 3-1 advantage now, so it's looking better. Looking better for humanity, you guys. So in through the window, talking about the difference between backgammon and poker, yeah, we touched on that a little bit earlier, and you're absolutely right. I mean, backgammon and poker are very different because backgammon is a game of perfect information, whereas poker is a game of imperfect information, and that's a big distinction in game theory between games with perfect information and imperfect information. But don't fool yourself into thinking that just because a game has imperfect information means that there's not a solution to it. Because that has actually been proven mathematically that there is a solution to it. As long as there is a finite set of moves in a game, then there is a Nash equilibrium in that game. So just because poker has a nice little element of a couple of hole cards that you don't know, doesn't mean that it can't be solved at a mathematical GTO level and in effect kill the game. Basically make it so that that humans can't have an edge over, a bot playing a GTO. And if a bot can play a GTO, then it can teach a human to do it. So, basically, I mean, I don't know a lot of people who are really serious in the field of AI who don't think that it's just a matter of time before all of these games eventually get solved by AI. I mean, the big AI dream, and maybe you guys can kind of touch on this. I mean, the big AI dream is coming up with a bot that can write a better bot. I mean, that's the holy grail of AI, right? And recently there's been a lot of paranoia in the regular world with guys like Sam Harris coming out and Elon Musk coming out talking about why this is such a bad thing and why we basically need to we basically need to make you guys stop doing what you're doing until we can come up with a way to make sure that we can control the problem. What do you guys think of that specifically? When you hear Sam Harris talk about how this is one of the existential threats that we are facing as a species, I mean, do you feel like this is just an example of a really smart guy who doesn't really know what he's talking about when it comes to AI being worried about nothing, or do you think that this is really a problem we should worry about? Like, is this something that maybe like it doesn't even really matter because it's kind of like it's kind of like gorillas, well, not gorillas, but like Homo erectus saying let's not breed because we're going to come up with a better version of ourselves that'll wipe us off of the face of the map.
Yeah, so it's definitely an important question. I think most of the people that actually work on AI directly, like the actual researchers that work on it day to day, as opposed to people like Elon Musk, who is, of course, wicked smart, but not an AI researcher.
Is he though?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
good.
he is.
It's good to hear. Like I mean, I don't know. I sometimes wonder, like when he says stuff like, "Well, I'm pretty sure we're living in a simulation." I'm like, are you smart, or are you just repeating stuff that you heard smart people say? I don't know. He's certainly charismatic.
He has a pretty good track record of actually getting stuff done, right? Like, PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, the OpenAI stuff. So a lot of the researchers that actually work on AI, I think, are not nearly as worried as the people that don't. And maybe it's just because, we get to see all the really stupid things that AI does too, or have a good sense of exactly how far there is to go. It's kind of funny, right? Like DeepStack can play a really good game of poker, and AlphaGo can play a really good game of Go, and Deep Blue plays really good chess. But in a lot of other ways, like there is, less intelligence than them than there is in like a fly, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think we're not as concerned about imminent rise of machines as being an actual threat that could happen, or even that if we do manage to have some sort of breakthrough and have intelligent robots that they'll be as evil as we suspect, or as unethical as we fear.
It's kind of interesting that you say that. I always kind of felt that way. Like it was kind of ironic that Sam Harris, who actually comes up with this idea that morality can be objectively, there can be an objective basis to questions about morality that we would evolve to, actually having an issue with the control problem in AI. Like it would seem to me like someone like Sam would think that if a computer was smart enough to get to that point, it would be smart enough to realize that there is an objective morality. I mean, like, aren't those two ideas kind of conflicting? Maybe I am not understanding. Did any of you guys read that Nick Bostrom book, by the way? The superintelligence book?
I didn't read the book, but I've seen him talk a couple times, like at conferences and stuff. Yeah.
I checked out the book in the library, but I didn't read it. It's a big book. It's a really big book.
I think that the type of thing that we're really worried about is less, it's not the Skynet scenario. It's not the killer robots that are autonomous. It's the killer robots that are, like drones, right? Like the human-controlled ones. That's the one that scares me more. Just having it be so easy to kill someone, like by pressing a button, and then have deniability about it afterwards.
This match is going back and forth, you guys. I thought I had it, and then it came right back, and now we've got the edge again.
I guess the issue about the robots don't tilt either,
Robots don't tilt.
I think humans tilt, and they spew, and they play into your traps.
You think a robot security guard would have beaten up that doctor on the flight?
He would have just killed him.
No, I don't think so.
Like what robot would ever look at this and say, "Okay, I know what the plus EV move here is." Everybody, get your cameras out. We're gonna make this is the plus EV move. Okay,
Yeah, they
good.
could have saved a lot of money by offering, yeah, a little bit more. Like, however much it would have cost to get someone to walk off that flight,
See,
they're going to pay 1,000 times.
this is what I would like to see. I would like to see a heist movie where it turns out that David Dow, it's like all a big heist against United, where they set up the whole thing with like the pilot, David Dow, and 3 security guards. You know, and so you need 5 men, and then like they shorted the stock right before, and the whole thing was just a huge setup. That would be the like such a pure heist. It's like 6 months from now, David Dow's sitting on the beach, enjoying his drink, and then the security guard comes up and he sits down next to him and pops up in his Corona. They have a little sunset. It worked, David. I told you it would work. All right. Lion 19898. It does say 40 already. That is not a mistake. It's not a bug. We've gotten our ass kicked against DeepStack, and it's so deflating. But now we're just trying to salvage this one last match, so that when they report on how their bot did, we at least don't do worse than the 2+2 guys. It's really, at this point, we're not really even playing DeepStack. We're just playing 2+2. It's pretty much what we're doing here. And yeah. Interesting flop. Pretty wet. So have you tried to play the bot at all, Mike? I mean, have you actually like played some of these matches?
Myself, I'm terrible. So I've played a couple of hands where I just like jam all in. But that's it. I'm not a poker player at all. We have a couple of guys on our team that do play, like online for money.
But like so far, like you haven't even played like 5 matches with this thing, huh? Like just as
No, not even. I always kind of like this about AI, actually, like that you can sit down and write a program that does something way better than you can do, right? Or do it doing things that you don't even understand. So, for example, like I was involved with a lot of our heads-up limit stuff, and I was one of the people that helped solve heads-up limit. And that one, yeah, like all we had to do, we never had to tell it how to bluff or when to slow play or whether aces were better than kings. It just discovered that through playing against itself. And so afterwards, we can go and look at it and realize, oh yeah, so it knows about pot odds and it knows about slow playing. But shit, I don't play poker, so.
It's interesting, like because it doesn't really know why it's doing the things it does. It doesn't know what like the difference between a bluff and a semi-bluff and a value bet. It doesn't think in those terms. It doesn't think in human terms. So it's definitely. It is really cool, like that you can just like you don't have to know how to play poker. You can just sit back and make a bot that plays poker better than you could, or better than anybody could. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I suspect that you guys probably have done it. Like I've played around with it enough to know that like it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough. It's not like when you're playing against a human that you have an edge on. The human gets destroyed because it folds way too much, or it doesn't bluff, or it never check raise bluffs. And it's really cool watching DeepStack do stuff that humans like. DeepStack takes lines that humans wouldn't ever take ever, and it puts you in really tough spots. It's really like playing an alien. It really is, and it's pretty cool. And like humans will do stuff that I think probably, I hope that maybe, we'll still give, like, the edge to humans for a while, like be able to like make bets that will set up future bluffs. I just wonder like how. Yeah, it is really kind of like chess where you're seeing moves ahead. I'd like to think that the humans can still find an edge somehow in those spots, but I don't know. You guys might have done it. You guys might have gotten to the point where you could slap this into those Vegas heads-up machines, and instead of playing limit, they're playing no limit. You guys have any patents on this? Any of the technology you guys have built so far?
We don't. No, we publish all the stuff that we do. So yeah, I know those machines that you're talking about. I saw those last time I was in Vegas. I think that company actually has the patent on having like the real video poker machines.
That's kind of silly. IP is weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, those
I think the
machines
spot-
are over like Venetian and Bellagio. Every once in a while,
The
I'll
spot
see
that
a poker
was-
player like sitting down playing it, and I'm like, huh. I wonder why. Like, where's the edge here? Like, do you really think that you're beating this limit hold'em bot?
They have a limit one, right?
Yeah, it's all limit. It's all limit. They don't have like the no limit
That you
machines
can
out
play
yet.
Public. Where's the website? How can you link that?
Oh, you're talking about theirs.
Yeah. Can they link it?
Yeah. Could you guys type in the link to the limit bot that you guys have that people could actually play?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys post it? Yeah, those heads-up limit machines that are in the casinos. At the same time, I can believe that they're probably superhuman, and at the same time, I would not be at all surprised if they have a big leak. And the reason is just because if I think about where we were, like technology-wise, at the same time that their machines came out, our very best programs were still beatable for like 6 big bets per 100. So even if, like, I think it's even generous to say that there was as far ahead as we were at the time. But even if they were, that's, if you could do it, that's a strategy you'd love to sit down and play against and win 6 big blinds per 100 every hand. So I don't know. I don't think it's solved. But I think the only way that you'd be able to exploit that is if, like, one of their machines fell off the back of a truck, and if you went and dug the strategy out of it and had a close look.
These are such tough spots. It's like so the human, opponent might slow play the queen or the jack so that you would catch up. Okay, make the call. Nice hand there, DeepStack. Nice hand, DeepStack. I still think that we're going to be able to win this match. We still have the edge, but the chip advantage is definitely slipping. Dottie B, good to see you in the stream, by the way. Big shout out.
Yeah, Dutch, why are you don't betting?
Wasn't trying to donk bet. You can't count, Lion, you can't count on C-bets from DeepStack like you can with pre-flop human aggressors. He just doesn't do it. Gosh, I'm really folding this hand. Fourth pair, jack kicker. Am I just letting DeepStack just run over me? Yeah. Nice bluff. Ah!
Did he bluff you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no.
Pot size bet got through me pretty good there. We're just picking wrong. So now it's all pretty much evened up again.
There's no antes, right? Or is there?
No.
Do you
No
think it's
antes in
different
this
if there's
thing.
antes?
I don't think so.
Do you feel like you're learning? Do you feel like you're learning about poker when you play this touch?
No. I don't really feel like I'm learning much. I feel like I'm just getting my ass handed to me, and
Do you feel like you have to read more books?
yeah. I guess I need to read the new Zachary Elwood books.
How to read poker bots?
Yeah.
You should write a new book, How to Read Bots.
So a 3-bet pre. Having played with it, I can tell you that its 3-bet range is actually pretty wide. We actually might be ahead here. But it could also have smaller pocket pairs and ace hands that I'm kind of thinking that maybe we just turn king queen into a semi bluff. Worst case scenarios, we're probably looking at 10 outs twice, 40%. And the pot's kind of gotten away from us at this point, where we're looking at, if we make the call, we're looking at 9,600 in there, which is about a half starting stack. And this might be our best shot. Just say, okay, let's go ahead and take the 40% against your pocket eights if he happens to call. I think we could probably get hands like ace jack and maybe even ace queen to fold, which would be good. I think like weaker aces fold. So yeah, I think we're just gonna make the shove right here. This could be the end, you guys. And what ended up happening? So he made the call. He makes the call with ace 9,
You got
which is like, okay, we're gonna have to hit, and
You
we
won
did.
one.
So we got
Hey, you got
the win.
Yay!
We got we got the win. We sucked out on the bot. So
Yay, sucking out.
the bot had us dead to 10 outs, but we got there. So it's not a total loss. We get to save a little bit of face instead of have the headline read confirmed Dutch worse than the 2+2 podcast. Guys, that was really I'm not gonna say that was fun. It would have been more fun if like I had won. It was very disheartening, and I feel like after we were at 2-0, it was really like I felt like just crying. Honestly, like just I was about to like show very, very human emotions on stream in front of everybody. But it was a really good learning experience. I got to tell you too. I think that the work you guys are doing is the most important work anybody is doing right now. Like if I was going, I mean this like sincerely. There's people who are feeding starving refugees in Somalia, and that's important work. I think that the work you guys are doing is more important because they're just putting a Band-Aid on a problem, and you guys are actually trying to solve every problem, which I think is a very, hats off to what you guys are doing. I hope that you guys continue doing awesome work and saving and eventually replacing humanity with something better. So that's it's kind of funny. So Bobby Big Buy and my little brother and I, let me tell you this story before we wrap it up. And then, so we were having sushi a few years ago, and we were talking about AI development with a whole group of people, and someone at the table said something like, how cool would it be if we got to the point where where because we're all poker players. You know, he goes, how cool would it be if we got to the point where robots were really doing all the work? Every job out there was performed by an AI, you know, a robot, and all people would have to do is just sit back and play poker all day. And Bobby Big Buy-In, he looks at him and he goes, and then we could teach them how to play poker and we wouldn't have to do anything. which I thought was maybe the funniest thing, because you know, when I think about the future of AI, I mean, we probably will get to the point where AI can do everything better than humans, not just these kind of analytical things, but people are talking about how, oh well, humans have a monopoly on on art and, you know, creative stuff. I mean, already Google, that little Google drawing program can draw a lot better than I ever could. I think we probably are going to see a point one day down the future, as long as humanity continues, where AI is writing better screenplays, is writing the American novel better than Hemingway, is writing, you know, is sculpting better than you know, Michelangelo. We probably will get to that point, I think. You know, and when it gets to that point, it is kind of an interesting question, like what is humanity's place in that kind of world, because it's probably at that point just sitting back and enjoying the show, you know. Anyway, I really appreciate you guys giving us this opportunity and being here and joining us on the Twitch match. Do you guys have anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
Just to say thank you, Dutch, for playing against us. This was, I know, it was really fun for us and really important for us too. You know, it's great to have good players to play against, and especially ones that can give really, you know, insightful feedback as you're playing.
Well,
yeah, so thank you very much. Like, this was awesome.
This has been it's been a lot of fun. I will tell you that if I was playing DeepStack online in a heads-up match, it would pass the Turing test. I would think that I was playing a human, a very good human, and I would put that human on my do not play list. So, thanks again, you guys, and to, you know, everybody in the stream. Really appreciate all of you hanging out with us. Our next stream is probably going to be on Monday. We love you all. Make sure to click on that follow button, and yeah, I'm going to go ahead and
tell them try out the limit bot.
Oh, and try out the limit bot. We've got the link right there in the chat. This is it right here, right? Just poker.srv.ualberta.ca. So we'll go ahead and link it on the YouTube video right below us, and check out that limit bot. Hopefully, we'll also see the DeepStack bot on there at some point in the future. It's a really cool little program, and yeah, I'm deflated, but also impressed, and I think it's been a cool time hanging out with you guys. So thanks for that, and we'll see everybody later.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks.